in to episode 240 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only American and Brazilian podcast here on this Sunday afternoon. It's August the 9th, 2026. Here, a few weeks away from football, 3 weeks after the World Cup. As I like to say, we are truly in the dog days of summer. I'm Nick Hill, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States, and joining us is Gus Tomazelli from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Dylan Becker from somewhere near Washington, D.C. Guys, how are we doing on this Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing good. Keeping it vague because no one can exactly point out on a map where I live in the state of Maryland. So loving that. Quickly before we move on to how Gus is doing, I do want to point out it is the 38th anniversary of Gretzky getting traded from Edmonton to LA. Hence that in my background. So cool little hockey history for you to start things off. But we'll get into the rest of the NHL later.
I'm doing good. Nick. Ready for football. It's August, so we are a couple of weeks away from you know college football and then the NFL. Definitely, ready to talk some baseball, and let's do it on this. At least here in Brazil, beautiful Sunday afternoon. No clouds in the sky, so let's do it.
Yeah, I think there is some rain developing near me. I feel like every day it's sunny until it isn't here in the middle of a Tennessee summer. So, but hey, that's what summer's supposed to be like. August is supposed to be like, and because it's August, one thing is on the minds of everyone in the South, and that is football, particularly SEC football. And that's where we're going to start today here, starting some college football previews with the SEC, which up until a few years ago, I think was the undisputed best conference. Although these days, maybe that's in question between the SEC and the folks up in the Big Ten. But we're going to start off with the SEC, right? Because this is the conference that we love. This is the conference that we all went to school to, that we've all covered with the balls, and it's kind of just take a broad view out. Is there extra pressure on the SEC this year to prove that the SEC, in fact, is better than the Big Ten? Like, do you think there's pressure on the top teams in this conference, especially when we get into the playoffs, especially with some of the big non-conference games, like in Ohio State, Texas, for example, uh, to show that yes, the SEC is still the preeminent conference in college football?
And there's always pressure to prove that we're the best. Even though every team in the SEC has some sort of beef with each other, we always want to be better than the other conferences. That there are times where I struggle to root for Alabama over Ohio State, for example, but if it comes down to it, I'd rather be rooting for a dominant SEC team over putting my feelings for the Tide down. Um, but you also have to sort of remember it's just sort of two different vibes of football, I guess. I feel like the SEC's rooted deeper in like tradition and pageantry, and the Big Ten always felt more like blue blood, executive, fancy money football.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be some pressure on the Southeastern Conference, especially if you look at the history of college football championships. The last time probably the SEC had like a 3 seasons in a row without winning a title. While I was looking at it, was 1993, 1994, and 1995, where you had Florida State and Nebraska back to back.
Hmm.
Then you had at least when you had 2 seasons consecutive in a row without an SEC. Then you had an SEC winning, like for example, Florida State. Oh, also you had Oh, my mistake. You had also Florida State, Oklahoma, and then Miami, 1999, 2000, 2001. But yeah, I think the big puts more pressure, as you point out, Nick, is that in the past when you had that 3 years in a row without SEC winning, was three different conference. For example, you had ACC, then at the time you had the Big 12, then the Big East, with Miami back then. But
Right. Well,
now,
once the SEC went like 7 years, went 7 years without a title. Because I mean, from '99, right, you had Florida State, Oklahoma, Miami, Ohio State in 2002. You had, and then until LSU won in '03. So it was a 5 year drought. And I mean, you had years where you had an undefeated SEC champion in Auburn in 2004 that didn't even get a chance to play for a national title. So the SEC back in the late '90s, early 2000s just did not have the same respect because the SEC, as we really know it, really grew its dominance in the late 2000s into the 2010s. And really a lot of that is because of the dominance of Nick Saban in Alabama, with some LSU thrown in there, and of course Georgia in the late 2010s, early 2020s.
I'll put Florida in there as well. With Urban Meyer, I think that
Correct.
because Florida was the one that broke the that cycle of SEC not winning, and they won 2 years in two seasons in 3 years.
Absolutely. And I guess the question is if SEC is going to end that streak and get a national champion back in the conference, who is it going to be? Because it's not just the SEC hasn't won a national title. It's that the SEC hasn't even had a team in the national championship since 2022.
Hmm.
Because remember, the last three national championship games were Michigan, Washington. You had Ohio State, Notre Dame, and then last year was Indiana, Miami. So, of course, Ole Miss was the team that got the closest last season. So it has been certainly a drought uh, that people in the SEC are not accustomed to, for sure. It's been really weird not seeing an SEC team playing in that final national title game, especially in this 12-team playoff era so far, where the SEC, frankly, has performed poorly. Right? I mean, Tennessee, we got absolutely destroyed by Ohio State in 24. Georgia has lost both of their appearances in the 12-team playoff. Um, of course, Alabama got absolutely smoked by Indiana. I mean, think about the two wins the SEC had in the playoffs last year were Alabama over Oklahoma and Ole Miss over Georgia. So they were SEC v SEC games. I mean, A&M lost at home, could not score a single touchdown to Miami. So really, it has been a rough go of things for the SEC. Because think about it, the only two wins that the SEC has in the 12-team playoff were Texas against a really mid Clemson team that got in based off of a miracle ACC win in the championship in 24. And then they got to play Arizona State, a game that frankly they should have lost,
Hmm.
but somehow were able to barely skate by. And arguably their best performance in that playoff was against Ohio State, the game that they lost. But they were like going blow for blow with Ohio State in that match, and it, like Ole Miss has probably had the most impressive playoffs of any of the SEC teams the past two seasons, but obviously came up a little short last year against Miami. Um, and of course, Ole Miss, I think, is a team where, in the broader SEC discussion, I want to start off this year because I think they are easily the most fascinating team this year because of obviously the backstory heading into this season. Because obviously Lane Kiffin flips in the middle finger, goes to their arch rivals down in Baton Rouge, and Ole Miss, despite losing their coach, still defies the odds and goes to the semifinals, losing the heartbreaker to Miami. And the court smiled favorably upon them and allowed them to get Trinidad Chambliss back. So, when I look at Ole Miss this year, right, they, you got to wonder. Clearly, in the playoffs, I think spite was definitely a motivator for Ole Miss, right? They wanted to
Hmm.
prove that like we are more than just Lane Kiffin, but now can Pete Golden prove that he is capable in his first time ever as a head coach, capable of running a football program. Because it's one thing to be motivated for a playoff run immediately after, something really bad happens to you, but can you sustain that for an actual run, especially at a school that really has never, done much of anything? It's been over 60 years since Ole Miss has won the SEC. They've never even played in the SEC championship game since its creation in 1992. Um, so I don't know. Like, what do y'all think about Ole Miss? Because I think, with Trinidad Chambliss, I think this team very much can, compete potentially to make it to Atlanta.
It's they just got to stay focused. I know there's a lot of drama still surrounding Ole Miss this year, and there is a matchup between the Tigers and the Rebels on the calendar, which is going to be very exciting to watch. But just because you have a matchup on your schedule against your former head coach, and it's going to be a very heated game, it's still just a game. The goal overall is obviously a conference championship, going even further than that, a national championship. Um, get past that game, maintain your composure. Don't just stay focused.
Yeah, I think it's
Yes,
definitely
yes.
gonna be the at least in the first half of the season, the game that is gonna attract the most attention. Lane Kiffin knows how to, and I think there's a certain kind of praise to it in terms of he likes to be the distraction, to be the main point of attention, to kind of get the attention of the players, because he's gonna be like, focus on me, I'm here, I am the villain. So then the players get no distraction. There's no story about them. It's all about the coach, and I think that can be some you know some good about it, because it's gonna be on week 3 in Mississippi. So Lane Kiffin likes to be, hey, come at me, let my players be totally, free from the distraction and just play the game.
So my argument against that is I can't name any off the top of my head, but there are definitely some players in every team that have egos and try to draw attention to themselves just to get people mad. I remember in Tennessee's game against Ole Miss in 2021, there were players taunting the student section. Um, and when it comes to playing in any game, if you run the score up enough, you can sort of do that. I wouldn't recommend it, especially in a student section as rowdy as Ole Miss or Tennessee. But when a game is close and competitive, you got to block out all the noise around you, regardless of some of the heinous stuff people are yelling, and just play the game. Start being pompous and celebrating once you win.
The game this reminds me of the most, and it comes in a very similar portion of the season. If you go back to last year, Oregon at Penn State. It was week 4, I believe. And I remember heading into last year, there was a lot of attention on that game because there was this narrative about James Franklin and Penn State about them not being able to win big games. And everyone's like, okay, you're getting Oregon with a new quarterback having to go all the way across the country. Penn State, you need to win this football game. And Penn State didn't win that game and lost in a very familiar fashion with terrible offense, losing in overtime. Um, and when they lost that game, you could just feel the emotions overwhelmed that football program, and then they go out and lose to Nico and UCLA the week after, and everything completely fell apart for Penn State, leading to James Franklin being canned. I think for Ole Miss, they're going to have to be really careful to make sure the LSU game, even if they were to lose that game, that it doesn't lead to the same thing, because it could be really easy for Ole Miss to throw everything emotionally on that game. And because like so Ole Miss Tennessee, for example, yeah, the crowd was super emotional, but I doubt really like a lot of the players were super emotional about that game, because obviously they were kids whenever Kiffin ditched Tennessee, like it wasn't like they were playing Kiffin the year after he left. Like for Ole Miss players, this is going to be a super personal game. Like for Trinidad Chambliss, this is going to be a super personal game. Seeing your former coach who you believed in, that you came to play for, that you trained with week after week after week, and were planning on trying to go compete for a championship with, he gave you the middle finger and left to go to your rival. And now you're going to have to play him in in the biggest game that's probably ever been held at Ole Miss. I mean, this game is a million times bigger than the Tulane playoff game. Like it's a million times better. So um, I think that for Ole Miss, they're going to have to be super careful to not let this game define their whole season. Because if you win, then you're probably going to take off. But you still have a lot of other tough games that you're going to have to play this year. That's not Ole Miss. That's not just the LSU game.
I meant it more along the lines of, if you're an Ole Miss player, don't like try to kill anyone on the other team. Don't play dirty, stuff like that. Like, sure, you want to send a message, but play the game, follow the rules, stuff like that. On the other end of that, LSU, they want to win as well. They're in a very hostile environment. Don't try to provoke the fans that are already going to be. I'm laughing about it because I'm just excited about how rowdy that game's going to be.
Oh my god! I mean,
It's
LSU, like and I guess let's bring LSU into this, because to me, LSU, I think people are just assuming they're going to be really, really good off jump. I don't know about that. I mean, we're talking about a team with 46 transfers on it. To me, anytime you have a team with that many transfers on it, I think you have to be like skeptical. And then because like, could they end up being really good? Absolutely. We know Lane Kiffin can coach football. We know he can put together a really good offense. But it's not like Lane Kiffin has ever won a national championship, because he hasn't. And last year was going to be his best opportunity to do so. And who knows, if Lane Kiffin stays with Ole Miss, maybe he finds a way to beat Miami. Maybe he can go toe to toe with Signetti in the national title game. Who knows? But obviously, we will never know, because he was a coward and decided to leave for Baton Rouge. Um, and I'm sorry, like, and that's the thing about Kiffin.
But that's what he does. That's what he does. Why are you guys surprised about it? Being a Tennessee fan longer than I am, what he did to Tennessee in 2009.
Well, I was hoping, because he was a young coach when that happened, and I was hoping that maybe with age and experience, that he wouldn't make that same mistake twice. And I think,
but
I think in the long run, this
but
will
do
be a
you but do
disaster
you
for him. In the long run, this will be a disaster for him.
but do you think deep down did he ever said he did a mistake leaving Tennessee to USC? Did he ever said that?
Well, I would argue that he probably would say that it wasn't a mistake. In
Yeah,
his
so
opinion.
if he thinks it wasn't a mistake, why he would rethink his actions when like you think, oh, I did a mistake, I wouldn't do it again. But his mind is like, that's my characteristic, being a villain, ditch one place to go to the other, being selfish. That's what he does.
Look, we all do things that we think make the most sense for us, that advance our careers. Things that other people would say is not good, and the things that we shouldn't do. I know that in journalism, right? Like there's places you go, people you talk to that if other people knew that you were doing that, maybe they wouldn't be the biggest fans of it. But obviously, I don't have 100,000 people screaming at me whenever I'm doing my job. At least not physically there in the stadium, and that's what Lane Kiffin is going to be doing every single week this year. And when you look at LSU, like some of the games that with LSU this year are going to be so fascinating. I mean, week one, how about Clemson at LSU? Dabo Sweeney, he's still in the catbird seat with Clemson. I don't know if y'all saw Dabo Sweeney. He literally filmed himself like riding a kiddie slide, basically, in the football program, in the football, and and actually, hey, you won't believe this, but Clemson actually signed, I believe, 2 or 3 players from the transfer portal. Like it is actually a miracle. Um, but still, obviously, Clemson is not really using it that much versus LSU, which is adopting more of a Colorado strategy. Our entire team is going to be the transfer portal, which I think both approaches are not great. I think you need to have a healthy mix. Your team should be like 67% high school recruiting with holes plugged in by the portal. That's the way you should handle the portal with roster construction. Um, and I just feel like it's going to take Kiffin a little bit of time to truly build the roster that he needs to build to win a national championship. Now, that doesn't mean that LSU can't make the playoffs because they totally could. Um, Now, obviously, Sam Levitt is the quarterback for LSU, and I'll be honest, I think Levitt is overrated. I was never that enamored with him at Arizona State. I thought that Scadaboo made him look so much better than he was, and then when he didn't have Cam Scadaboo last year, Levitt was average.
So my thing about that, being loosely an Arizona State fan because of my brother, is we're not super impressed by Sam Levitt because and hopefully he doesn't barge into my room to beat me up for saying this. As Tennessee fans, we just kind of have it better. By Arizona State standards, Sam Levitt is exactly what they needed. And he decided he would have been better off elsewhere. He looked around. He was, if I remember correctly, he was in Knoxville being recruited by Tennessee when Lane Kiffin called him. And obviously, Coach Kiffin was convincing enough to bring him to LSU. But when it comes to how over or underrated a quarterback is, you have to remember where did they come from and how good were they for that school specifically. You can be mid by outsider standards, but still be great for the fans of that school and that school's athletic department.
I mean, that's certainly fair. By Big 12 Arizona State standards, he was pretty good. But I'll be honest, like I remember when LSU got him over Tennessee, I wasn't that upset about it.
Yeah.
Also, Gus, Jason wants to get in. Um, and there
The
Jason is.
boys.
I have summoned Jason. In any case, but what my point is on Levitt, I wasn't heartbroken when he chose LSU over Tennessee because I just don't think he would have elevated our roster that much as a quarterback compared to what I think we will ultimately get from the quarterback position. But I don't think he's going to necessarily elevate LSU to championship status either.
We'll see what happens with it. I was a little annoyed that the Tennessee's quarterback situation was very uncertain at the end of last year. I was only sort of excited at the potential of getting Sam Levitt just because I've seen him play. By Arizona State standards, he did okay for them. but it's the transfer portal is going to transfer portal, NIL is going to NIL.
Well,
Kiffin's going to pull his shenanigans.
my main problem with everything is judges. Like, I still,
Yes.
no one has given me a straightforward explanation as to why Trinidad Chambliss is eligible, but Joey Aguilar isn't. Like, Joey should be the quarterback this year, while Fajan's taking a red shirt and is able to develop instead of having to start Fajan this year. But that's just these judges are so inconsistent that is the situation that we're in because of the legal ruling. In fact, at one point this offseason, like Brendan Sworsby was going to be eligible to play despite, literally gambling on games. But, we'll sit here and debate like all the legalities and all the decisions that have been made this offseason that are just completely asinine. But kind of, I guess, moving to Tennessee, it's like obviously the mood around Knoxville is, and the discussion around Tennessee, just in my daily conversations with Tennessee fans here in Chattanooga, is who's going to be the quarterback. And
we had a conversation years ago after Garantano left, where it was we had Milton, we had Hooker, and we had a few other guys whose names I can't remember off the top of my head. And we were all surprised that they went with Hooker.
no, Milton. They went with Milton initially.
They did?
Oh, yeah, remember Milton started the first two games. And then Milton got hurt against Pittsburgh, and Hooker came in and never relinquished a job after.
That just shows you how long ago it was.
And we were not all surprised, by the way. That's a lie.
I couldn't remember it. Yeah, this was what, 5 years ago at this point?
Yeah, this was Heupel's
Nick,
first
you want to
year.
take this one?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I saw this come back up because I saw a clip of Joe Milton throwing in Dallas Cowboys practice, and he threw this absolutely gorgeous spiral down the field. And people were talking about, like, oh, how good Joe Milton looks in practice. And someone said, I can see why Heupel chose him over Hooker because of how Milton looks in practice.
I think I remember how it went now. We were all like, okay, checks out that we're going with Joe Milton. And then for his replacement that ended up being permanent, we were surprised it was Hooker.
Well, Jason wasn't surprised.
Well, because Jason's the smart man.
Yeah. Well, for me, I thought it was going to be Bailey, to be honest with you.
Yes, that's what it was. I remember.
And Bailey ended up never playing anywhere.
Oh,
that's
Bailey, the protege that never came to fruition because I remember back still in 2020, 2021. It
was Bailey and Maurer.
Yeah, and Garantano. Yeah, the rotation of hell in quarterback.
Well, honestly, I don't even blame those quarterbacks necessarily. A lot of that was just you had a head coach who did not know what he was doing in terms of developing quarterbacks. So, I mean, Jeremy Pruitt ruined Harrison Bailey. Like, Harrison Bailey got to start with Heupel from the beginning. I think Bailey's career looks a little different than what it ultimately ended up being. But Bailey truly, he didn't really fit Heupel's offense necessarily. So he would have been better off going somewhere else. But Pruitt just any quarterback that went to Pruitt's offense was just destined to suck, unfortunately. It's just the offense was so outdated. I mean, it's kind of like Mark Stoops in Kentucky, where like the offensive schemes are so outdated that no quarterback's going to look good in them. Meanwhile, Heupel can bring in a guy in May and have him lead the SEC in passing.
It's the weird thing is it always somehow works out for Tennessee in the end. Sure, we haven't gotten the results we've wanted lately, but I would take all of the results we've had under Heupel over more years of Pruitt.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is because I hear mixed back too. I think most rational fans would say there is no pressure on Heupel. There are some there are some more radical fans that I know who aren't who are grumbly about Heupel. Let's just say they weren't happy about what happened with the Vanderbilt game last year, uh, especially the Vanderbilt game. They weren't happy with us getting ran out of
They
Neyland
haven't been
Bible.
happy with Heupel since he was hired because he wasn't the superstar name when he was hired.
Some people
That's
just
also
like to
true.
complain about nothing.
Well, and of course, my counter to that is, well, clearly Heupel also wasn't happy about losing to Vanderbilt at home by 3 touchdowns because he fired his defensive coordinator and completely overhauled the strength and conditioning program. Because I think Heupel saw that result, he saw what happened, especially in that second half, and it was like that
And he
can't
brought in the
happen
guy
again.
that made IU good.
Exactly. I mean, our players look so much more jacked this season. Like it is truly a night and day difference when you look at it from strength and conditioning. Um, Now, obviously, I think the big question for me, obviously, really outside of quarterbacks, is how much better can our defense be off the jump with Knowles? Because Jim Knowles' defenses historically, they're usually take a year or two to really get ingratiated. And the question is, with the amount of transfers we brought in from Penn State, guys who already played a Knowles um, program up there, you know, does that put us in a position to be further along? You know, and what's unfortunate is we've already lost 2 guys for the season. We lost a guy from Miami. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He was going to be one of our cornerbacks. He unfortunately is hurt. And then today, news just came out that Jaden Harmon, one of our linebackers, he's out for the year for an ACL. So we've already lost 2 defensive players for the year with season-ending injuries. Now, thankfully, we still got plenty of other players from a depth perspective, but you know, I hope we don't get any more injuries because that's, if you look at last year's defense, one of the big downfalls was not having either of your NFL quality cornerbacks playing, and that really just cooked us. Between that and then Boo Carter being an airhead and not giving any effort in the secondary. So I just hope that the depth that we have brought in via the portal will be able to mask all that. Sans Chaz Coleman, who unfortunately just will never play a snap for Tennessee. But I think, to me, definitely the X factor for Tennessee this year is defense and how much improvement can be made on that side of the ball because the defense was abysmal.
I always knew our offense was okay. It's been on the decline for a couple years, but it's not terrible.
The offense was really good last year. I mean, the offense had like 2 bad games. Now is that they didn't play well against Oklahoma. They didn't play well at Alabama. Otherwise, they played pretty well in every other game. Like they were amazing against Georgia. They were really good in all the wins that we had.
I have very few criticisms of our offense. It's getting embarrassed by Vanderbilt. The Illinois game was frustrating to watch. Trying to think of a couple of other games that our defense was absolutely lacking.
Well, to me, the game that infuriated me was Kentucky. That's when I decided Tim Banks had to go. Was the Kentucky game?
That was another one, yeah.
That Kentucky team had no business scoring 34 points at Tennessee. And I'm just like, yeah, this can't continue at this point. If Mark Stoops' offense can throw up 34 points on your defense, you deserve to be fired on the spot. And that just that was it for me. And to me, like outside of Vandy, that was like the worst game of the season for the defense.
Yeah.
It was just a completely unacceptable performance.
That's the most points that Kentucky's put up since JG spotted them 14 with pick sixes a couple years ago.
Correct. Well, if you ask Kentucky fans, Kentucky fans are convinced they've got like the best offensive coach in the country now, and they're going to be a threat.
Let's call
in
up
every
Nick.
game.
Call up Nick. He'll say some dumb shit on here.
But the other issue I had with Tennessee last year, and I think it only happened twice. Our kicker just was too in his head when it mattered. I remember watching the end of the Georgia game at I was waiting for Adam Sandler to come out for a stand-up show, watching the end of that game, and he missed, which would have given us the win, which would have been awesome. And then was it the Illinois game that he also absolutely whiffed it to lose the game for us?
Yeah, that was the one.
It's I understand when you have the entire game is on your shoulders, it's a lot of pressure, but
You're a kicker in the SEC.
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, you come to a school like Tennessee, you know you're going to have those moments. And like Jason can attest this because he's coached kickers.
Yeah.
It's all a mental game. And either you have it or you don't. And Max Gilbert just doesn't have it. And thankfully, we have a new kicker from Louisville, right? Like, I forget his name. It starts with an R.
Ranvier.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that he will be better in those situations if and
So
when we need.
here's the thing. So I defended Max Gilbert at the Georgia game, and I know Nick will remember this. But when we ran an extra play, we got called for a false start or something, and it completely took Max out of his pre-kick routine, which
Yes.
you cannot do that, especially when you've got a game. This is the biggest kick of this kid's life, and you have taken him completely out of his rhythm. At that point, you need to call a timeout if you've got it, and which I don't think we did, to be fair. But in that moment, you need to take a timeout, let him reset. But that's the reason you don't run that play to begin with. I understand wanting to get a couple more yards, but in the off chance something screwy happens like that, you completely take him out of his rhythm, and he never recovered. And I don't think Max Gilbert's bad. I think he needed a fresh start because he was never going to be forgiven for missing that one kick,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't even think was his fault. And I would blame Josh Heupel for that, genuinely. And like Nick was saying, I've coached special teams, and part of my job was shadowing our head coach in those moments to say, hey, I think we're in range, or I think we need to do this or that to be comfortable with this. And so I would, on like third down, I'd basically get to choose our play. Now, Coach D would have the final say, but if I told him, hey, we need a couple of yards and we need to go, center it up to the right. All right, well, we'll run redskin red, dive to the right and call it a day. But the thing with Gilbert is when he missed again, you knew there was no recovery.
Mm-hmm.
If he had another opportunity in the game following to redeem himself, I think he'd have been okay. But he didn't get another chance for a while, and because of that, I think it just kind of festered in his mind. And when it came down to it, he got run out. And
Yeah.
is Ranvier a better kicker? I don't think so. I think Ranvier is fine, but I don't think he's better than Max Gilbert, like at all. He mostly was the point after and short range guy for Louisville last year. And I don't know what his true range is, but it's not a lot. Maybe this strength coach will have helped him, and that's kind of the hope. But when I heard Ranvier was leaving Louisville, I wasn't upset. I had the same reaction to him leaving as I had to Gilbert leaving. All right, let's do something better. And I don't think either school got better, genuinely. But I think Ranvier will be better having a fresh start and not being just eaten alive by Vol Twitter. But at the same time, I think Max Gilbert, wherever he ended up, will probably end up better for having a fresh start also. He ended up
Yeah.
at Memphis or something, right?
No, he ended up in Arkansas, so
Hmm.
Balls will actually see him in
Arkansas,
week
okay.
5. Yeah.
Is that a home game? Please tell me
No,
that's a home game.
no, we go to Fayetteville this year.
That sucks. Well, Ranvier is fine. He's somebody, he'll put it between the uprights, but he's got kind of a noodle leg. He's kind of like Rod Blankenship. So expect that. And if
Gotcha.
this strength coach helps him, great.
Yeah, but to me, I think it really was over for Gilbert when he missed. He missed like a kick or two against Oklahoma in a game that we lost by 6.
Yes,
So,
I remember
so,
that now.
so that was because I remember Oklahoma was just a game that was just infuriating from start to finish because, like Oklahoma, like they didn't play like amazing that night, but they played mistake-free football, and we turned it over like 2 or 3 times, missed some kicks. I mean, it was just. I mean, we lost that game. And those are, and that's the type of game that this year, if Tennessee wants to go further this year, those type of games you have to win, especially when you look at our schedule, when you have to play teams like Texas, and you got to play Auburn, LSU, you got to play, of course, Bama, got to go to Georgia Tech, and you got to go to South Carolina. We all remember what happened the last time we went to South Carolina. Hopefully, Michigan isn't very interested this time around. I don't think they'll be very interested with it being in the middle of October. But that being said, and I will say this: if they're the main positive, because everyone wants to act like last year was a failure for Tennessee, and to me it wasn't. Because a couple things that you can take positively are one, Heupel proved that he could take a quarterback out of thin air and have a really good offense with him, such as Joey Aguilar. Because Joey Aguilar otherwise was never going to get a shot to play in the SEC in that front, especially at a good SEC school. And as I said, Heupel led the league in passing with it. I mean, which is pretty remarkable considering that we literally got him 3 months before opening kick. But two, I think one of the other positives is we had a winning record on the road last year. I mean, 3-1. Of course, you were able to end the Florida streak for over 20 years. And like that Mississippi State win, I mean, that I know Mississippi State finished, what was it, 5-8, I believe, but that was a team that should have won at least 2 to 3 more games. They had Texas beat, they had us beat, frankly. Um, but winning that game, I think that was huge, and it proved that we can win a game like that on the road. Because a knock of Heupel heading into last year was you're always losing games on the road that you shouldn't. And the only game that we lost on the road last year was Alabama, which obviously you don't want to lose to Alabama, but losing in Tuscaloosa to a Bama team that was better last year. Because I think it's fair to say Bama was better than us.
Mhm.
They weren't like vintage great Alabama, but they were a playoff team that made the quarterfinals. Um, Tennessee didn't lose to any teams to them that were worst last year. Every team they lost to was in the top 15, which granted, if you want to get where you want to go, you got to win some of those games, which we have won in the past. We didn't last year. Uh, so this year, can you win at least 1 or 2 of those games? Can you upset a Texas? Can you upset LSU? Can you beat Alabama? When we look at those 3 games at home, can you win one of those? Can you avoid any catastrophic losses on the road? I think those will be the keys, and all that just hinges on can the quarterback the Heupel ultimately chooses be able to play mistake-free football because we got the weapons to cook on offense. Like I think Deshaun Bishop is set up to have a great year at running back, RB1. I'm excited to see what Javion Gordon does at RB2. Our transfer from Tulane. I think he is going to eat because I mean most running backs that come through the Heupel system eat just because of the way we spread out defenses, the tempo that we play at. Um, I think that I have no qualms about a rushing attack. I think our offensive line is going to be pretty strong. And then additionally, I think our wide receivers will have an argument to be among the top 3 or 4 in the SEC at least. I think when you look at the 1-2 combo of Braylon Staley, and Mike Matthews, I think they are both going to have big seasons, and I think Staley could have a Brazel Hyatt type season. Because I was really impressed with how he grew throughout the year last year. And the question is, who is going to be the main third receiver? Is it going to be Tristan Keys, the five-star true freshman that we brought in? Is it going to be Radarius Jackson? Is it going to be Travis Smith? I think we have 5 or 6 guys that are going to consistently get looks at wide receiver. And not into addition that I think we will also see the tight end position be much more involved. I think guys like Ethan Davis could have a huge season. And really, throughout most of last year, I thought Miles Kisselman was kind of a disappointment, at least from a receiving standpoint, because he was much more of a blocking tight end. He was not a great receiving tight end, and I think that will make our offense much more dynamic. To have a guy who's more of a receiver, but the catch to that is Ethan Davis has never been a great run blocker. So can he improve on that front? And we've brought in some other tight ends like this Trent Thomas guy that we brought in from South Alabama. He is doesn't really have that many receptions to his name, but is known as one of the best blocking tight ends in the country. So there are a lot of moving parts. I'm very curious to see how Heupel mix and matches it with them because he has, I think, as deep of a roster as he's had at Tennessee in terms of the players, and they all do different things. And I'm just curious who's going to go with a quarterback. And I think, and I've heard rumors that his offense may look more pro style than you're used to. Like, I think you're going to have, because, you know, he's always been more of a run first coach, and that's always been the misconception when it comes to Tennessee is that we are an air raid offense, and we've never been an air raid offense. Um, and I'm just curious, especially with a young quarterback, how Heupel will adjust his offense. I want to react to anything I just said there.
And when you have to reboot your system every year, you got to figure it out. How many quarterbacks have we gone through in the past, like 4 years? Has it been a new quarterback every year?
Yeah, literally, Heupel has never had the same quarterback on opening day because he had Milton in 21, he had Hooker in 22, we had Milton again in 23, then Nico in 24, had Aguilar last year, and you're either going to have Brandon or McIntyre this year.
It's having to basically redo an offense around someone entirely new at quarterback is a pain in the butt. For some teams, it sort of works out, connecting it to the NFL. I know Baltimore's offense is sort of organized around Lamar Jackson, and sure, it hasn't been the best, and we haven't gotten much success out of it, but Baltimore's offense has been fine. Now, going back to Tennessee on that.
Yeah, well, and two, it's hard to compare NFL and college. NFL, it's so different.
I know. I was just pulling Baltimore as an example of a team where an offense is built around the quarterback, and that's the first one that popped into my head. Shows you a little bias for me, but whatever. But when I know college is only 4 years, every 4 years you're going to have basically an entirely new team, but being able to keep it as consistent as possible makes it a whole lot easier to repeat how well you did the year before. I thought we did, when we had Nico at quarterback, mistakes were made. The Arkansas game comes to mind, but we did fine that year. It was probably the best year of football besides the 2022 season with Hooker as the quarterback for most of the year.
Right. Well, that year, I mean,
that was lightning in a bottle.
Old-fashioned team. We were reliant on our running back and Dylan Sampson in our defense.
But when Nico left, even though he could have stayed. We had to redo everything. We couldn't repeat how great we were that year, and it's frustrating. Um, Consistency matters, like I said, and we just don't have it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're also in an era of college football where most teams don't have the same quarterback year to year. And like, if you're lucky, you get the same quarterback 2 years in a row.
Mhm.
I mean, look at the title contenders last year, right? Indiana had Mendoza for 1 year. Miami had Carson Beck for 1 year. Um, Ole Miss made the semifinals with Trinidad Chambliss in his first year starting. Um, yeah, Oregon had Dante Moore in his first year starting. At this point, like it doesn't really matter. Like experience matters, but like also, I think every team is going through so much roster turnover now. It's more about how does the team come together than how long they've been playing together. You know. I think if you can have a second year quarterback, great. And there's some teams that have that. I mean, I know we haven't talked about Texas yet or Georgia yet, but those are two teams in the SEC that have experience coming back. Of course, we talked about Ole Miss; they've got experience coming back on that roster. Um, but for Tennessee, you know, I'm more concerned about the Jimmies and the Joes. Like, do you have the athletic capability to hang with some of these top teams? And I think Tennessee genuinely does, but will they be able to execute at the level needed to beat all the team enough of those teams to make it to the playoff? I just I can't come on here and say that I believe we necessarily will, um, because we don't know what Faison and Brandon or George McIntyre are going to do. Gus, I know it's been a minute since you've gotten to say anything, so just kind of what are your thoughts on Tennessee heading into this year? Kind of, what do you think are the keys?
I think he's frozen.
It
There
kind
he
of
is. Frozen.
no. I think
There he is.
it back. Can you in terms of Tennessee this year? I think definitely Hypo having to reinvent the offense, especially the quarterback position, and does well again. I think 8 or 9 or even 10 wins. It just proves that he's a competent head coach. But at the end of the day, I think that that's something that college football gonna have to deal in the future. The era of a quarterback staying 2, 3, 4 years in one program is done. So you're gonna have to be really savvy in the portal or trying to, really have find the perfect combo is having an experienced guy either within your program or in the peripheral portal, so you can develop your star freshman to a good second year, but sometimes you can't have that. So you're just gonna have to figure out, you know, um, with what you have. One thing I want to point out in the SEC as well is Kellen DeBoer. You mentioned Bama. Kellen DeBoer, I believe, is at third season as
Correct.
a head
Mhm.
coach. And
Mhm.
Bama fans are sort of mixed feelings because if the board did in Tuscaloosa in any other program, he would have been safe. But he immediately took over from a legend Nick Saban that got Bama fans used to be, you know, winning or at least being in the title game. So, do you guys think he's in a hot seat or warmer seat, or am I exaggerating?
He's I think he's in the warm seat because when the standard is Nick Saban, no one is ever going to be as great of a coach as he was. And any when discussions for who was going to be his replacement were underway, I pitied whoever was going to fill his shoes. DeBoer has been doing fine by outsider standards, but by internal Alabama standards, it's he's lacking. I remember it was his first season that we beat him, right? In 2024.
Correct. Yep, we beat him
Yeah,
in
yeah.
24.
Um, and sure, they beat Auburn that year as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you won one of the two biggest games in the regular season that matters to Alabama. Which of the two is bigger is up for debate for that
And
team and
also
those
keep in mind
fans.
they've beaten Georgia in each of those regular seasons as well.
Yes, yes, there was that. I just know the Auburn game is a heated one. Against the Vols is a heated one. But just the way Alabama performed that year, I remember, was against us was pretty lackluster. The last time we beat them in 2022, it was a miracle kick, but there was what like 2 minutes left on the clock when we secured the game against them, something like that.
Well, yeah, well, remember in 2022, they missed a kick with 15 seconds,
Yes,
and then
yes.
Hooker hit three big passes um, to set up our game winner that night.
It was a heck of a miracle, several miracle plays in a row by Hooker. Um, a pass to Brew McCoy as the clock hit like zero point 0.1 seconds left.
Yeah.
And then that terrible field goal that went through and won us the game. But in 2024, we had that game secure with a decent amount of time left. And when you're Alabama, that's not a good look. They did better as years went on, but we
Well,
sort of
Bama's
embarrassed
biggest
him.
problem last year is we're used to Alabama having a dominant running game, and last year their running game was horrific. They didn't have a single 100-yard rusher the entire season, which is unacceptable for Alabama. It,
Yeah.
it, it just is. Like that's their DNA. And people want to give like Ty Simpson all kinds of crap for last year. Ty Simpson's the only reason why they made it as far as they did. Like he played very well for Alabama last season. I mean, you look at the way they came back on the road against Oklahoma in the playoffs. And yeah, I know obviously they got ran out of the stadium by Indiana, but Indiana was just that much better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Indiana was. I mean, look what Indiana did to Oregon too, and everyone's singing Dan Lanning's praises at Oregon. And I've got a long rant to go on about Dan Lanning whenever we get to the Big Ten because, I'm going to go on a very similar tangent about Sarkeesian here, Steve Sarkeesian here, in a minute when we get to Texas. But um, I just I think when it comes to DeBoer, he literally took Washington to the national title game 3 years ago. Washington. We're not talking about a big time school. We're talking about Washington. You know, and I get they're one of the best West Coast programs, but they still don't compare to an SEC team.
No.
Um, and I get like right, like if you take the whole thing that sunk the 24 season was that terrible loss to Vandy on the road,
I
and
forgot about that.
like no one realized how deadly Papia was going to be with the RPO. And obviously, we all know Papia's never going to play in the NFL, but as a college quarterback with a gimmicky system, yeah. I know some people would hear that and say, "Well, oh, look, a Tennessee fan talking about a gimmicky system." Well, yeah, I mean, they are the janky RPO that Vandy runs is very unusual. That's not a pro style system, but it works. And it like if for a quarterback like Pavia, you have to run something like that for it to work. And hey, credit to them. Tennessee couldn't stop it last year, and Vandy couldn't stop it or Alabama couldn't stop it 2 years ago. So um, they really have just a lot of bad road losses. You look at the losses they had um, last year. Obviously, they got blown up by Georgia in the SEC title game. Just the offense could not get going there because they couldn't run the football. They just couldn't. And they obviously week one. Who can forget the loss to Florida State in week one? A team that didn't even make a bowl game. And plus, how in the world is Mike Norvell is still the coach of Florida State. You know, like he should have been fired. He should have been fired probably after the 2-10 season, especially following how his
They're
team just split.
they're still living under that era of, I think they got paralyzed, at the no late November 2023, because from then on it has been a down roll spiral. Only exception that Bama game.
Right. I mean, Florida State and Clemson both are just a complete shell of themselves in the ACC. And I can't wait to talk about the ACC because it is truly fascinating when you really look at that conference and the dynamics within it. But yeah, I think to me, DeBoer shouldn't be on a hot seat. But I mean, you are probably right in that if this year doesn't go to plan, and yeah, they're going to be rolling out a brand new quarterback too. I think they'll probably start Keelan Russell, is my guess. So we'll see how he does. He doesn't have that much experience, but it's Alabama. They're going to have talent. They still have Ryan Williams, at wide receiver, who I'll be honest, I think Ryan Williams is super overrated as a wide receiver. Like he was not the best wide receiver on Alabama last year. That was Jeremy Bernard, who is now with the Steelers.
Mm.
So, because Ryan Williams made that one incredible play against Georgia 2 years ago when he was 17 and everyone remembers that play. It reminds me a lot of Odell Beckham. Remember Odell made that one incredible catch against Dallas as a rookie. So everyone has this idea of that Odell is an amazing wide receiver in their heads when truly he's had an above average NFL career, but he just had a really viral catch that made everyone think he's a better wide receiver than he actually is. I mean, because people want to compare Ryan Williams to like Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith is leaps and bounds ahead of Ryan Williams. I mean, Ryan Williams is not the best wide receiver in the SEC. I would take, and this may be a flaming hot take, I'll take Braylon Staley
Mm.
over Ryan Williams. I'll take Cam Coleman at Texas over Ryan Williams, And those may be just absolutely flaming hot takes. But I don't think Ryan Williams is cracked up to be as good as a lot of people crack him up to be.
And it's hype and overhype. Just because you do one thing that's awesome doesn't mean you'll pan out in the future.
Absolutely. Now, I think one thing I do want to talk about is coaches that are in the hot seat. Because I know you brought up Alabama. So I think some coaches that you hear, I bet that could be on the hot seat. The first thing that comes to mind is Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Because you remember last year they were preseason ranked top 10, and it was an absolute disaster for the Gamecocks. They finished 4-8, and Lenora Sellers just was terrible throughout most of the season. He has all this NFL hype heading into the year, and South Carolina just was terrible last season. So now Lenora Sellers are still with Carolina, and this feels like a make or break year for both Sellers and Beamer. Guys, so what do y'all think about Carolina? I'll be right back in a second.
It's. You go, Gus.
I think Shane Beamer definitely, needs to be delivering better results than having viral moments or being the cool coach, because being the cool coach, it feels like it doesn't getting much great results. So yeah, I agree with what Nick said. It's a make or break it for both, because it's cool to win. It's cool to be viral, but it's even cooler to win.
Yeah, it's. We'll bounce this back to Kiffin. He's a very viral coach, and he got Ole Miss success last year. Sure, he wasn't part of it towards the end when they end up losing in the playoffs, but just making the playoffs alone is an achievement. You got to find the balance of giving players and fans a reason to care about you and providing those results. in the words of Jason, Jeremy Pruitt was a stale ham sandwich of a coach. He had zero reason for us to be interested in him, and also couldn't produce results, which is why when we fired him, it was a great day. Now, when you're a little too viral, like Coach Beamer is, that's a bad thing, especially when you can't produce the results that back up all of your talk.
Well, and I think too, the other discussion is what should South Carolina's expectations be on a year-to-year basis? South Carolina has not won a conference championship since 1969 when they were in the ACC. They made the SEC championship game once in 2010, which wasn't even their best team under Spurrier. South Carolina historically has been in the shadows of Clemson, in the shadows of Georgia, in the shadows of Florida and Tennessee. They've never been a top tier program, and really their whole athletic department has really sucked. I mean, their men's basketball team has sucked. Their men's baseball team has sucked. The only thing that's been good about South Carolina is their women's basketball team with Don Staley. Outside of Don Staley, the rest of their athletic department is absolutely horrific. I think their total win, their combined SEC win total between football, men's basketball, and baseball. I think they won maybe like a total of 7 games across 3 sports last year in conference. I mean, it's literally awful. Like, I mean, at bare minimum, I think the athletic director probably should go. I mean,
Yeah.
if all 3 of your main men's sports are that bad, which is.
You can't be, not every school can be good at everything. Tennessee is decent at everything. Alabama's pretty good. Kentucky, yeah, basically everyone. There's a lot of schools that need improvement in all of their sports. South Carolina being one of them. Being only good in one sport looks really bad for them. So, agreeing with you, it's more their AD that's on a hotter seat than their head coach in football.
And I guess too, from an NIL perspective too. I mean, there's not like a ton of massive companies in South Carolina either. I don't know if there's. I can't really think of any like big alumni. Like the most famous person I can think of from like Columbia is like Darius Rucker.
And all of Hootie and the Blowfish, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anyone else from Hootie and the Blowfish besides Darius Rucker.
No, I don't either. Let's actually look up South Carolina alumni.
I mean, of course, Jadeveon Clowney, but like, it's just. I think when it comes to South Carolina, like Shane Beamer, like he's good enough there to get you a 9-win season every 2 to 3 years. Is that seems to be the ceiling. Now for South Carolina, there are the ingredients there for them to be really good. Like, I mean, we all know Williams-Brice Stadium. That is a crazy place to play. When their fans are interested, like I've experienced it firsthand, that sandstorm, it gets to you. Like when you're losing down there and you're getting mad because your team isn't doing well and they're blasting the like it does something to you. It really is unnerving. And I imagine it's probably what a lot of teams feel like when they go to Neyland Stadium and start losing and we're blasting Rocky Top at them. Like a sandstorm has a similar effect, like that's like so that's why it can get kind of South Carolina is just such an interesting case study,
Yeah, there aren't really any alumni that can help out. I'm looking at this list, and the 2 names that stick out to me the most are Darius Rucker, like we said, and this is an uncomfortable one, Senator Lindsey Graham.
Well,
so yeah,
guess it can't help much anymore.
that's a bit of a funky one, but it's you got to find the ways to just get that NIL money, I guess, because you got to make it work.
Yeah, they got to figure out something. Now, granted, I don't even know if Clemson has that much NIL, but granted, we all know how bad Clemson has fumbled the current NIL situation. So it feels like the state of South Carolina is behind when it comes to in the realm of college athletics, at least to me. Um, Other teams that I think one coach I'm very fascinated by this year, Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State last year is the team that left the most on the table because they finished 5-8 last year. They should have won 8 games. They should have beaten us. They should have beaten Texas. They should have probably won at least one or two other games, but they kept on having the most just they kept on melting down in big time games and losing games they shouldn't have. Even though they were a exciting team to watch. Remember they upset Arizona State early in the year, and people were like,
Yeah,
"Oh, Mississippi State is back," and with all the cowbells and stuff, and they just could not capitalize on it. And I think this year, one quarterback I'm very keen to watch is Camario Taylor. He is their starting quarterback this year, and he, I think, could bring a new dimension for them that Blake Shapen couldn't. But at the same time, has Mississippi State acquired enough talent to truly compete week in and week out? I think that's the question because Mississippi State, right, is never going to have the most talented roster. But they have proven in the past if you have the right guy at quarterback, like back when they had Dak Prescott in the mid 2010s with Dan Mullen, Miss State's a program that can be dangerous.
it's you just got to get together. They have potential for success is there for everyone, and there's going to be an element missing from teams that are just on the cusp of it that they got to figure out. Whether it's NIL, finding the right coach, picking the right guy as your starting quarterback, whatever. You just got to go through the motions of trying to figure it out, simply put.
Right. And of course, does Ole Miss's success put any more pressure on Mississippi State?
Oh,
Because
most definitely.
Well, because the whole thing with Miss State too is they were really screwed when Mike Leach died. Like,
Yeah,
especially given that Mike Leach died in December back in was it 22 when he passed, and they really weren't able to respond to that at all, because they tried to promote their DC at the time. I believe it was Arnett was the guy, and that didn't work. And then they completely fell off a cliff for a while, and it just. Um, so it really Miss State's one of those teams that I kind of low key want to see succeed
yeah,
because they didn't get into this through any fault of their own. It's just the best coach they were ever going to have in Mike Leach got taken from them, and
yeah.
it got taken. I mean, he got taken from all of us. We all lost in college football. The Pirates, and you know, um,
It's losing a coach through him just dipping out in the middle of the night, like Kiffin did. That's one thing you can recover from that. But when your coach is so tied to the identity of your school and through circumstances out of your control like death, that messes up the team, and it you hate to see it.
yeah. So I do want to see Miss State succeed. I do want to see him do well, and we don't play him this year, so hey, I'll probably run for Miss State in basically every game.
Yeah.
Um, Now, those are really the only two teams I can think of with like coaches in the hot seat because obviously Clark Lee at Vandy's definitely not in a hot seat at all. I mean, they're going to be fighting to keep him, I think, moving forward. I don't think Drinkwitz at Missouri is on the hot seat. At least he shouldn't be. Because I think he's done obviously a very good job for Missouri by Missouri standards.
Mhm.
I mean, is Missouri a playoff contender? Probably not. Um, and one player to really watch for this year, I think, for Missouri is the running back Hardy, who was one of the best running backs in the league last year. He had a very eventful offseason. He got shot back in like March, I believe. He was at a party in
Damn.
Mississippi, but he has recovered and he will be ready to go.
Good for him that he's able to recover from that because, damn.
Oh yeah, literally, yeah. I was at like he was visiting back home and he was at a party and I don't know what the circumstances was, but he got shot. So, but he is alive and he will be playing football, and I'm sure he'll be going crazy. I
Yeah,
think.
get better motivation having a second chance on life because that could have gone horrible.
Literally, yeah. So that's one guy to watch. Um, I think another storyline is there's a lot of first year head coaches this year because we've talked about Pete Golden at Ole Miss, but think about a lot of the other ones, right? Because you got John Summerall at Florida, you got Alex Golesh at Auburn, Will Stein at Kentucky, and you have Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas are the
Hmm.
four new coaches, which is why I don't think you have a ton of coaches on the hot seat this year because last year really was the red wedding for SEC head coaches. A lot of guys got the axe last year. Um, so out of those four coaches, like who do y'all think is going to be the best? Because for me, I think it's going to be Golish at Auburn. I think he brought a lot of his guys with him from South Florida to Auburn. He has Byron Brown at quarterback. And I think Auburn will have their most competitive team that they've had in years. Because think about how bad Tennessee was during the 2010s. That's been Auburn since like 2019. Like Auburn since the pandemic has been horrific.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that one because I remember my time in Florida. I was paying a lot of attention to USF and UCF and all the other Florida schools besides the Gators. USF very much stuck out to me, and it, there's going to be some good stuff in Auburn this year with the new leadership.
And one of the most interesting games I think on the Tennessee calendar is Auburn, Tennessee in Week 5 because it's Alex
Yeah,
Polish, the former Tennessee OC, versus Heupel, which makes me nervous because Golish knows everything about Heupel, but on the flip side, Heupel knows Golish. So, of course,
it
granted,
brings
there's some contra-
excitement to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's also some interesting things that's happened this offseason because Golish did face a little bit of heat for taking his team to like a spa for training camp. Like at least making him stay in a hotel during training camp, which I think is a nothing burger because
Yeah, that's fine.
every
Whatever.
team does something like that. Um, so a writer, a sports writer down in Birmingham was trying to make it a big deal, and it's not. It just isn't.
Yeah, I don't even see how that could even be an issue
Yeah. Well,
besides
I mean,
just clickbait,
yeah,
clickbait.
it's August. Everyone's trying to find and take a little sliver, and you're trying to make a big issue of it.
We're all just
Um,
bored and want the sport to be on TV.
True, true. My quick thoughts on the other three. So I think when you look at Florida, I think maybe a slight improvement from Billy Napier, at least off the bat. I think there's a lot of turnover, and Florida, I just think fell behind significantly when it comes to NIL. So they've got some work to do to get that roster back in order. Um, but I do think Summerall is a really good coach. I mean, he took Tulane to the playoffs, so I,
Florida fell pretty. I don't think they were at rock bottom last year, but the bar is pretty low for improvement. So I like a good competitive Florida team, as sort of blasphemous as that is for me to say as a Tennessee fan, because I don't want my rivals to be completely destroyed. Sure, I want to beat them every year, but I want competition because it makes the game fun. I talked to some Bama fans a couple years ago that I'm sort of friends with, and they said for years, sure, the games against Tennessee were exciting, but them absolutely humiliating us made it not as fun, you know? And I'm sure it feels the same way in Florida, where they want a competitive game against everyone they play. And when you don't get that, it sucks.
well, I mean, the question is Florida really even like a big rival for us anymore? Because for one thing, we've beat them three out of the four last years, and now we don't even play them every year. We don't play Florida this year.
Which that frustrates me. Whoever's in charge of scheduling, I guess they don't think they're as big of a rival. Like, and I'm looking at the schedule. Um,
Like,
we
I just hate it. You know, like
I if I could, looking at all of these games, I would trade the Arkansas game for a game against Florida.
Oh yeah.
Because like I'm basing all of these off emotion, to be honest. Like Texas, that would be a cool matchup just because it's UT versus UT. You got A Manning coming back to Neyland Stadium, even though he's not playing for Tennessee. Auburn, I think the last time we played them was my sophomore year, and I don't even remember that game because I couldn't watch it because they locked me in the quarantine dorm that weekend. Um,
Oh yeah,
Arkansas,
that was during COVID.
that was a rough time.
Oh, that wasn't that the game, Gus, that like we were like where Pruitt got mad at us for asking a question about like
Oh yeah,
did
against
you
Yes.
watch the
Auburn.
game?
Oh my God, yeah. And I'll never forget. Did you watch that game?
Unfortunately I didn't watch it. I watched your sorry ass quarterback throw the game away.
See,
I
but
miss so much those Zoom. I miss so much those Zoom press conferences.
it was that game was, besides that moment, that whole year was insignificant because of how messed up things were. But anyways, Arkansas, I'm still I'm not mad at Tennessee. I'm more mad at Nico for absolutely blowing that game a couple years ago. Bama, we obviously want to keep. South Carolina is a fun game. Kentucky's a fun game. Um, my second choice for a game to trade for Florida would be A&M, but I kind of like A&M. Um, LSU I want to keep, and obviously we keep Vanderbilt. So overall, when it comes to our SEC opponents, yeah, I would trade Arkansas to play Florida just
I
because.
mean, I get it because like you can only keep three, and of course you got to keep Bama because that's a historic
Yeah,
rivalry. Vandy's your in-state, and then Kentucky is, you know, Kentucky's also historic. And from Kentucky's perspective, Kentucky doesn't have all the rivals that we do.
yeah,
So Kentucky needs us more than we
yeah.
need Kentucky.
And then on top of that, actually, this is going to be controversial, but I think you guys would agree with me. I understand that Vanderbilt is our in-state rival that we had play last regular season game. Vanderbilt is not as big of a rival to me as Florida is. It's like
I would agree with that. Now,
sure.
granted, after last year and the way that Diego ran
Oh,
his
I'm
mouth,
bitter.
I want to beat the absolute hell out of Vandy this year.
Yeah, I want to put them back in their place beneath us. But when we were consistently beating them, it was, it's Vanderbilt week. All right, let's have a good time, boys. And it was just an easy win. And like we said, we last year was rough, and we're gonna show them that it was just a one-time thing. We gave them a little hope. Cool.
But like
But
on Vandy though, like obviously they're probably starting a true freshman quarterback in Jared Curtis, who was a 5-star. Obviously they lost Pavia. They've lost some other dudes off of that team. But do we think that Clark Lee can find a way to keep Vanderbilt consistent? Because as like Signetti has shown in Indiana, it doesn't really matter, the name anymore, right? Like if you got a coach who knows what he's doing, you can get it done. And there's money at Vandy, and they're investing in men's athletics. We talked about like how bad South Carolina was, but Vandy, if you look at like how Vandy's done athletically, right? Football had their best season ever last year. Men's basketball made the second round and was
mhm.
really close to making the Sweet 16 and made the SEC men's tournament final. And women's basketball, I mean, they had a top five team. Baseball, of course, we know how good they've been in baseball. I would argue Tennessee has definitely been better in baseball the past 5 years. Um, Vandy is still competitive, although they didn't make the tournament last year. But overall, we know Vandy's good in baseball. So Vandy, I would argue, especially when you look at the fact they've got money, they're in Nashville. So you're in the one of the hottest cities in the entire country. A place that everyone's moving to. Vandy might actually have a shot of sustaining themselves as a competitive program.
Yeah. It's definitely possible. I think out of all the teams in the SEC, Vanderbilt is having the best sort of revival, I guess is the right term, because they were always
Well, that would require them to be alive, to have ever
yeah,
been alive.
yeah, that okay. It just the best rebuild's not right anymore.
Well, the
Either.
problem also too for Vandy is I think truly they would need to become Nashville's team.
Yes.
And I would still argue that Tennessee is really Nashville's team, not Vanderbilt.
Well, it's because like the Big Orange Tee and Neyland Stadium and everything that the Volunteers are. That's such a symbol to the state of Tennessee that it's hard to be bigger than that. And like it's you can't just top it. It's not easy.
Like I think about like for example like Miami, like the U, like how that's South Florida's team.
Mhm.
That is the whole Miami Metro's team. Or like when you go to LA, USC is their team. Um, now, granted, we often make fun of their attendance issues on this show at both Miami and USC, especially UCLA, and some of those big things about whether or not they truly care about college football. But I think about like Georgia Tech and Atlanta. UGA is much more important in Atlanta
Oh yeah.
than Georgia Tech. I mean, and just
When you have two good teams in, not that 3 hours is a short driving distance, but that's fine. Two good teams in like a 3 hour driving distance. One is definitely going to be more popular than the other. But you got to give people a reason to care about team number two. And I think that after last year, um, Vanderbilt will be a little more popular. I know, hopefully I pronounce his name right. Comedian Nate Bargatze has been like a big promoter of Vanderbilt sports. The episode of Saturday Night Live he hosted was the night they beat us, and because of people like him, people are starting to pay attention to Vanderbilt. I'm saying people too many times, but you got to promote the team and give fans a reason to care. And I think through people like did again Nate Bargatze and whatever other famous alumni they might have, that can bring popularity to Vanderbilt.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's a good thing for the state of Tennessee. Like
Oh yeah,
it's good. It's good to have a competitive rivalry in the state of Tennessee.
I was literally just saying this a minute ago.
Yeah. So it's just, um. Anyway, so I know we're beginning to run a little short on time. We could talk about the SEC for 3 to 4 hours. We didn't even get to talk about really Texas, Oklahoma, A&M,
We'll do that next week.
Oklahoma, Arkansas. We might as well have a part two to this discussion because I wanted to really go on a tangent about Steve Sarkisian, especially, and about
We can
A&M.
do that. We can do that. We can do that. So let's have part two next week.
Yeah, we'll just we'll come back and do it a part two of the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, we care so much about. I mean, it just means more. So we definitely have a lot to say about it.
Right, and then like the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12 combined probably won't be as long as this discussion.
Yeah.
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 All right, so we'll start off and making picks. And I don't know. I guess let's hold off on the NFL talk right now. Unless y'all want to briefly talk about the AFC and NFC North.
Yeah, let's go with the AFC North, especially because we have a representative right now. And the question is year one for the new era down in Baltimore, new head coach. What do you think about it, Dylan?
I Harbaugh was one of our most tenured coaches, and as far back as I can remember, he's been the guy. Um, and it's when you replace a coach that's been around for so long, you're obviously going to have questions. Um, he has to connect to the team. I know Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh were pretty tight. So I'm nervous and skeptical about how this year's going to go under new coaching, but Baltimore has been pretty consistent in how we do. I know the Ravens sort of blew it last year in making the playoffs when our kicker missed it against the Steelers. Um, but besides that one mistake we had, the Ravens are fine. I'm hopeful for this year because we'll see what happens. I know. Hang on, what day is it? In a couple weeks, I'm actually going to a preseason game, so I'll definitely let you guys know what I think about the team after actually seeing them. But it's overall last year when Harbaugh parted ways. Um, Baltimore's taking a gamble on if he was the problem or if it's Lamar, because we had the two biggest names on the team were them, and things haven't been working out lately. Even though I'm just saying that we're pretty consistent. You get rid of one or the other and hope you made the right choice. And I'm hoping we made the right choice in sticking with Lamar and firing Harbaugh.
And I know Buffalo's not in the AFC North, but Buffalo and Baltimore are making the same gamble, I
Mm-hmm.
think. In terms, they both fire their head coaches like, okay, we trust our quarterbacks and they can go and get it done. Now, I think the difference is Josh Allen has played really well in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has not played well in the playoffs. Like Lamar Jackson, if you really look at it, what's his defining playoff performance? He doesn't have one. He
That one
was
against the Chiefs a couple years ago was fine, and we would have won that game. But I think it was Zay Flowers' taunting penalty that really
I mean, they
ruined things
scored
for
10
us.
points though at home.
Yeah, there was that.
I mean,
It's
Lamar was
so
not
long
good in that
ago.
game. I mean, Lamar was not good there. He was not good in 2019 when the Titans came in and won. I came in and won. When the two times you were a one seed, right, and had the home field advantage, it just, um, I just haven't seen it from him because I've seen Josh Allen go into absolute crazy duels with Patrick Mahomes, right, or like last year have a crazy duel with Bo Nix, and come up just slightly short because of one or two mistakes. I mean, I think for me, Allen has been a lot closer to making a Super Bowl than Lamar Jackson.
I'll agree with you on that.
Um,
Um, I just looked up Lamar's contract. We have him through the 2027 season. What one thing, a prediction I have that probably has absolutely no backing to it, but hear me out on this. I think if Baltimore doesn't get a lot of success this season, trading Lamar away might be an option. Just because he's only got a couple years left, might as well get something out of him while we still can.
yeah, I think him and Burrow in a very similar spot because I could see Cincinnati eventually trading Burrow away as well.
We could do a big quarterback trade. Baltimore can take Burrow. Cincinnati can take Lamar. Let's see what happens.
And to me, I think that's the biggest wild card of the entire AFC North. Can Cincinnati find a defense? I mean, that's the big deal. And to me, things are already not off to a great start for the Bengals because the rookie that they signed or they drafted in the first round, Shamar Stewart's already hurt and already done for the year. And they didn't replace their coach. And the problem with Cincinnati is they typically have started off incredibly slow every single year. And even though Burrow statistically has been absolutely incredible for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's proven he can win in the playoffs. I mean,
Mhm.
Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. I mean, Lamar's never been to a Super Bowl. Josh Allen's never been to a Super Bowl, but Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. Um, the problem is for Cincinnati is, does Joe Burrow have to score 50 points every game to win? Which in the
Yeah.
NFL you just can't do that. I mean, same thing for Dak Prescott in Dallas. Those are two teams that can score a lot of points, and we know can score a lot of points. But you got to have at least some defense. And outside of that, too, you know, what about Pittsburgh and their new coach? With Mike McCarthy, does he get any more magic out of Aaron Rodgers, a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers?
So my neighbors are the most fanatical Steelers fans I've ever met, to the point it's annoying. I look at I know earlier you said it's you can't exactly compare college sports to the NFL, but I look at the Steelers sort of like the Florida Gators, and they were successful 10, 15 years ago, and in the 2000s and sort of the early 2010s. I remember all those Super Bowls that they were winning, and it was great. But that was the era of Ben Roethlisberger and Hines Ward and Troy Polamalu. That was a long time ago, and since Big Ben left, Pittsburgh has just been depressing to watch. And I say that as a Ravens fan.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
what
they did
what
not plan at all for the post Big Ben. Like, you look at the Packers, right? Everyone gave them crap for drafting Jordan Love when they did, but that's turned out to be, I think, a great move for them.
yeah. My neighbor's biggest criticism for the Steelers is they don't fire their head coaches officially. Um, if I remember correctly, the official statement from Tomlin is they mutually decided to part ways or whatever, which is fancy, respectful term for you're fired. Um, Pittsburgh just doesn't fire coaches when they need to, and they keep them around for too long. I think Tomlin's tenure as the head coach of Pittsburgh was too long. My neighbors agree with me. When you're not producing results, something's got to change. Baltimore literally just did it. Hopefully, they made the right choice. I want Pittsburgh to make the right choice because I want a fun, competitive Pittsburgh, because that's just what makes sports exciting. When your rival is good, it is the most fun to watch. But even though Pittsburgh had beat us last year in the least exciting way possible, I, I want Pittsburgh to succeed. Rodgers is also an interesting factor, being the old fart that he is. Um, when he was doing his little soul searching and deciding what to do, he'd figured staying around Pittsburgh was the best thing for him.
Did you see his comments? I think it was either this week or last week on the McAfee show, where he
I
was
did
sort of
not.
like talking about Anthony Fauci and a whole bunch of other stuff that really didn't have anything to pertain to football. And I'm just like, at this point, having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback more of a distraction than a help? And I know,
Why
Gus, I feel
not?
like you would have a strong
Probably.
opinion on this about Aaron Rodgers. Is Rodgers more of a distraction at this point than he brings to the table?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers wants to be a politician so bad. Like you see his interviews, you see him on the Pat McAfee show. Just go, you know, do like Tommy Tumerville or even Paul Fireball. Go into politics. That's why you want it. Like I don't understand. Like you had a great football career. Like you won one Super Bowl. I think was one too low. If you really think about it, during his prime from like 2010 to like 2020, he should have won like two or even three. He butchered so many opportunities. Like how many chances, like how many times he got to like the NFC Championship and butchered it. Like I think 2020 was the most like biggest one against Tampa, but he's going to another year with Mike McCarthy with all the like. Who would have thought when I mean, when Mike McCarthy ran out of the building at Green Bay, those two would have beat together again. Not me.
Yeah, and it's just like Pittsburgh. It's just like, what is Pittsburgh even trying to accomplish here? Is my question, because it's 2026. There's no way that you think that bringing in Mike McCarthy with 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to lead to anything but 9, 8, 10, and 7. Which is what you've been for a decade now. Like they haven't. The last time the Steelers were truly dangerous was like 2018
Yeah.
when they still had Antonio Brown with his crazy, persona.
Well,
And
he's dangerous for another reason.
yeah, he's dangerous for a multitude of reasons, but he was exciting on the football field.
There are too many, I guess, personalities that the Steelers have tried to rely on. You had Antonio Brown, and we all know what he's up to. Aaron
Le'Veon Bell.
Rodgers. It's every team has a player that is a little weird, but Pittsburgh has just had too many, and it kind of causes problems for them.
Well, to be fair, Pittsburgh probably doesn't have the weirdest player in the division. I can think of a certain quarterback in the Cleveland Browns that is probably the weirdest player in the division. And I want to talk about Cleveland for a second because I don't know if Deshaun Watson's even going to start this year. I mean, if you look at the practice numbers so far, like Deshaun Watson's been awful in practice. He was awful last year. I mean, ever since the way his tenure in Houston ended with the injuries and, of course, the sexual assault cases, he has never been the same since. Just has never been the same. I don't know if this dude really cares about football the same. And I think, to me, Shador Sanders seems hungry. He is hungry, and he really wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Shador Sanders really has the capability to be the guy in Cleveland. And that's on top of the other quarterbacks. They had like 5 quarterbacks on roster because you have Dylan Gabriel, who they drafted in the same draft as Shador Sanders. Like, why draft 2 quarterbacks in the same draft? I'll never understand that. And then they drafted another quarterback last year in Taven Green, the guy from Arkansas, who was pretty dynamic in Arkansas. But now you got 4 quarterbacks on the same roster. So who's the quarterback in Cleveland? And you just traded away the one good player that you had in Myles Garrett. Well, the one elite player that you had in Myles Garrett. I mean, the best player on that roster, I would say, is probably Harold Fannin. They're tight end. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
So I texted my Cleveland Browns friends on who their pick is going to be for quarterback. If they get back to me, I'll let you guys know. But if my issue with Shador is he has the talent to be successful, but just seeing him in Colorado, it just didn't feel like he had. Your quarterback is supposed to be a leader. He didn't have good leadership capabilities, in my opinion.
I don't know. I disagree a little bit. I think Shador can lead the locker room. Like I think obviously the Sanders. We all know Dion and Shador. They're both flashy, right? They both like the attention. But that doesn't mean they can't lead, right? And I've been very critical of Deion Sanders, but I don't like. For example, I don't think they're inherently bad people, right? Like they're just characters. They like the show, and sports. Putting on a show is a great thing, right? I mean, it's like like the discussion on Lane Kimmel, right? I think the dude is an asshole, but like he puts on a show.
So I'll sort of modify my statement. If Shador is the starter in Cleveland without any of his dad's involvement, it'll really be a test to see who he is as a person rather than an athlete. Like we said, he has the talent. But when he was playing under his dad in Colorado and his dad made it so his rap song was the touchdown music rather than Colorado's fight song, that kind of made me mad because that's not the side of leadership. That's more look at me rather than look at us.
Correct, and that's why I think the Deion Sanders experience at Colorado is going to be over after this year
Oh,
or the year
probably.
after next. Because I mean, outside of having Travis Hunter and Shador, like what has Deion Sanders done at Colorado?
It's frustrating to see, but
And did you see that video of Boo Carter practicing at Colorado? The dude can't even cover
yeah.
air. I'm just like, man, that's so disappointing because I wanted him to be really good at Tennessee, and he
Yeah.
was a really good high school player around here too in the Chattanooga area, but just unfortunately did not have his head on straight. And to be fair, I think he had some outside influences, kind of like Nico. If you're catching my drift there,
Hmm.
that were steering him in the wrong direction.
It's when you have too many people meddling in your business and what you're trying to figure out and who you're trying to be as an athlete. It's difficult. Hang on, my Cleveland friend's getting back to me. And that it was the Shadur's biggest issue. I never. Yep, he just said Shadur. So
Yeah,
hearing it from a Cleveland fan themselves.
I mean, Shador's
Okay, hang
definitely
on.
easier to
Okay,
root
this
for than
this is
Deshaun Watson.
interesting. I'm reading these texts as they come in. I don't think you can start anyone other than Shador, but that's not saying he will be starter all year. I don't
I
think
mean,
Watson deserves it. I'm gonna not include that part. And I'm just gonna stop reading these texts from here. But the point is, my friend, if you think Shador Sanders is a character, you haven't met my friends.
right. Well, Cleveland Browns fans, you got to give them credit. Those fans are loyal. They're thick and thin, and they're loyal because, man, they've had nothing to root for. They had one good season in 2020 where they won a playoff game. Um, then they were stupid and let Baker Mayfield walk for no reason at all. And now they're paying the price.
It's Cleveland fans are very frustrated with how things are for them.
Yeah.
As my friend just proved. I don't have to tell you what he said, but you can
Well, I know
imagine.
exactly what he said.
Yeah,
I
he's a
mean,
Cleveland fan. He's tired. He's frustrated. He's bitter. He just won success, and Cleveland just can't give it to him.
right. And Cleveland fans deserve to have a really good season. But it's just, man, and
It's
it starts with the
Cleveland. What do you
Haslams,
expect?
which, we know what happens when the Haslams have too much influence on your football program um, in Tennessee. Like, the Haslams are just a cancer to any football program they touch.
It's hard, and there's a debate on which football franchise has it hardest. I'd have to say it is Cleveland. It is hardest to be a Browns fan out of any team in the NFL.
Yes, 100%. I mean, maybe the Cardinals are another team that I can think of that it's just eternally terrible. It seems like, but even then, the Cardinals have had some years they've been really good and they've made the Super Bowl.
Okay, this is
And
another. I have another text I can read from my friend. Shadur should be the starter, even if he didn't play the greatest. He had a bunch of, even if he didn't play the greatest, he had a bunch of support from the fans who love him. It would be catastrophic to the fan base and locker room to start anyone else other than Shador. He brought excitement to the Browns. Gabriel's passes were in the dirt and was booed off the field and replaced by Shador.
like Gabriel's not very good.
Yeah,
Watson, everyone hates because he's a
terrible person.
allegedly.
Uh, look,
As a journalist, right? I got to put in the allegedly.
if
I'm just
Baltimore can get rid of Justin Tucker for allegedly being a terrible person, I don't know why Cleveland hasn't done it yet.
well, because Cleveland knowingly knew all this and still executed the most expensive trade in NFL history. Like it's like everyone knew when Cleveland did it, it was a stupid trade. Yeah. And it was a
And
stupid contract. Like you gave him $250 million, basically.
no one ever said Cleveland was smart.
No. And now you wasted one of the greatest defensive seasons in the history of the NFL, and then you had to trade him to the best team in the league because you got nothing.
It's just put all your chips on Shador. Hope for the
Yeah.
best. It's Cleveland. It can't get any worse than it has been.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it really can't get much worse for the Cleveland Browns when they've been 0-17. So you can't go any worse than 0-17. But yeah, I think looking at this division, though, as I said, if Cincinnati has a defense, I think they have the best offense in the
Mhm.
division. But overall, like it feels like Baltimore should win. But I think will be a situation where whoever wins this division is probably the 3 or 4 seed. I don't
Probably.
think there are any Super Bowl contenders from this division.
It's frustrating because Pittsburgh and Baltimore were so good for a decent chunk of my life, and now that our entire division has potential, it's not great potential, but we all have potential, and it's just a lot of we're right there. Every team is just missing something. Cincinnati being defense, Cleveland being just get good. Pittsburgh, hopefully they made the right decision in mutually parting ways with Tomlin and betting on an old man to lead your team to success. Baltimore, same issue. Lamar still has plenty of career ahead of him, but it was a coin flip on figuring out if it was him or Harbaugh that was the problem.
Yeah, to me, like if I had to pick a champion from this division, I'm picking Baltimore. But
Okay.
I think Cincinnati will have a shot as well. I think it'll be Baltimore, Cincinnati.
I mean, the super unbiased, yeah, it's going to be Baltimore or Cincinnati. I just don't see Pittsburgh being super successful this year with a new head coach and a dinosaur quarterback. And, well, the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns.
Yes. Although I do think Pittsburgh does have a shot of maybe fighting for that 7th wild card seed because they always just seem to be there, and they could make the first round and then get promptly blown out.
Probably.
Yeah, so that's the AFC North there. So I think we'll leave the other NFL divisions for future episodes here. Waiting
It's a
on
bummer we
Gus to
don't have
get back in
Jason with
here.
us because I'd want to hear you two
All right, Gus,
go
can you
back
hear
and
us?
forth about the Titans and Colts.
For some reason, I don't think I can hear you all now. So
No, yeah.
here, I'm going to come out and come right back in.
Well, we know the echo's still there.
Yeah, we can definitely do next division. Yeah, the NFC North next week. Yeah, a lot of things to talk about. Yeah, and let's keep it going. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go join the car because I have to head on to the radio station for the radio show. I'm gonna be now the official host.
Oh, awesome. All right, so we'll keep it
I'll be
going
joining
here.
the car. I'll be joining the car.
All right.
So Gus will be back with us here in just a moment. Here on this Sunday afternoon, August the 9th, you're listening to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. I don't have to do a station ID for FCC purposes, but I just felt like doing a little transition there anyway.
Sometimes it's fun.
Absolutely. One topic I wanted to talk about, I was really hoping to have Jason join us, but I think we were very deep in the SEC discussion.
It just means more.
Yeah, we just didn't have a chance to include him in it as he's now preparing for Indy 11. WNBA is in a state of crisis that I don't know that I've ever seen a professional organized league ever be in. And we've talked about this a couple of times over the past couple of years, how it feels like anytime the WNBA comes up, it's never for the sport. It's never for the games. I don't know if we've ever truly talked about any of the teams, any of the games, I mean, outside of maybe talking about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever here and there.
And when in the Bronx Solid Sports days, whenever we were on with Chloe, she'd bring it up, and we were happy to talk about it. But with everything going on in the WNBA that we're about to get into, none of it is pleasant news that's exciting or like, hey, this is the results of what's happened. Oh, this.
No, it's not. It's not
Yeah.
because these are the best women's basketball players in the world.
No, it's. And
It's
some of them are involved, but it's not for good reasons.
no. It's just I don't even know where I want to even start with this discussion. Okay, so
We are
let's
on
just start with the
eggshells.
game. Let's just start with the game that happened yesterday: Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky, which I would say at this point is probably the most heated WNBA rivalry. It seems like every time the Fever and the Sky play each other, there's always some sort of drama, something that happens. Because I mean, first and foremost, this is the Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark game, which those two have a rivalry that goes back to their days at LSU and Iowa. Which on the surface, that's great for the WNBA.
You'd think
Like
it would be.
like you need rivalries in basketball. Like the NBA was built by Michael Johnson versus Larry Bird.
Oh, real quick, didn't Angel Reese get traded to Atlanta?
Actually, you know what? You're totally right.
But I'd imagine the rivalry is still there,
Yeah,
even
well, I mean,
if
Chicago and
one of the
Indiana,
main
they still
facts.
clearly don't
Yeah,
like each
yeah,
other.
yeah.
Clearly, a certain player named DeJounte Carrington does not like Indiana very much. Because this is not her first time. So if you take you back to 2024, DeJounte Carrington notoriously had a really hard foul on Caitlin Clark, and I believe she got suspended for it. I want to say like a game or two.
As she should
Um,
be.
yeah. So yesterday, she's chasing down none other than Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's teammate. Sophie Cunningham, if you've not been paying attention to the news, has been in the news for non-basketball reasons. Yes, well, the pointing, the finger pointing, of course, excellent meme. But also, so obviously, she waded into this ongoing cultural war debate over transgender athletes and saying that only biological women should play in the WNBA, which, I'm not going to mince my words. I agree with Sophie. I just do. Like, I'm sorry. That's just, if anyone wants to come on here and debate me, you can on that front. I agree with Sophie on that front. Um, but clearly, this has sparked all kinds of debate on both sides of the political aisle. Which is really unfortunate, right? Because obviously these women they just want to play basketball, right? But it's every time they go to a press conference, right? Every time you go into an arena, everything is made about the issues that don't pertain to what's happening on the court. And well, yesterday, Sophie Cunningham, right? She's got an open layup, and DeJounte Carrington is running down the court and just completely clotheslines her. Almost like it's trying to rip her head off.
It looked like some stuff out of WWE.
Yeah, like I've never seen a men's basketball foul like that. That's one of the most vicious basketball fouls I've ever seen. And of course, it leads to a bit of a scuffle, and Carrington gets thrown out of the game for it, as she should. I mean, it wasn't a play on the ball at all. It was an attempt to hurt Sophie Cunningham. And so Carrington goes to the locker room and then posts on Fred's quote, "white privilege." And yeah, I'm really glad we didn't have this debate on Rock Solid Sports, this discussion, because this would have gotten very tense, I think, really quickly, especially
I can think of a lot of people where we would have been just sitting silent, chairs rolled back, eating popcorn while some people went at it. Not that that's a bad thing, but
look.
it would have been a heated episode, and we can't cram it into. What would we dedicate, like 10, 15 minutes to it? You can't fit this discussion in that amount of time. And sure, we're going to do our best to time this right, but this is a tough subject.
Yeah, especially like when you're in my position, right? Because if you don't know, I'm interracial. Like I have
Mhm.
black dad, white mom. Like grew up around both black and white families, right? So I want us all to be in a racial harmony, you know? Like I grew up in a family that, you know, I always saw both sides of the family. Like it's like seeing stuff like this is always really difficult for me because of the fact that, you know, I get asked about it and it's tough because like I don't want to feel like I'm choosing one side of the family or the other side of the family. Um, but let's call a spade here. You know, if I had a chance to say something to Miss Carrington, um, you didn't get kicked out of the game because of quote white privilege. You got kicked out of the game because you tried to intentionally hurt one of your competitors. I mean, it was not a racial thing why you got kicked out of the game. And I see people online that are trying to defend her and claim that the WNBA was being discriminatory.
I
No,
fully believe if the roles were reversed and Sophie Cunningham hit her like that, number one, Twitter would be on fire even more than it is. Number two, she would still face the exact same punishment and been ejected because that's just the rules. Intent to injure is frowned upon in every sport. It's not a racial thing. You're just trying to hurt someone, and that's not cool.
correct. You know, it's not at all. And, you know, you have to wonder why there is so much vitriol towards the Indiana Fever, especially with Clark and Cunningham, especially. And that's where things really get into some really uncomfortable territory because when you look at the impact of Clark and the Fever, right? Like they have brought more eyeballs, more money to that sport than you know we've seen before. Like the
People in the
WNBA
past,
gets,
yes.
yeah, like, but it just seems like the other teams and the other players in that league really despise them. They
It,
just
it it's
it's so weird because it's just like these are the players, these are the moments, the rivalries that can make your league profitable. Like the WNBA has never made a profit ever. Um, but now you have a superstar who transcends your sport that can finally get the eyes that you need to be successful. Um, and it seems like every at every chance they are constantly trying to put them down.
it's jealousy. Simply put, uh, Caitlin Clark sort of kicked down the door of women's basketball, making it giving more people a reason to pay attention to it. Um, I'll give credit where credit is due. Angel Reese was a factor in that too, but more people are looking at Caitlin Clark just because both are talented athletes, definitely better athletes than me. Angel Reese is like right here. Caitlin Clark is like up here in talent, and they're jealous of it.
Right. I mean, and there's other great players, right? I mean, you look at
Yeah.
guys, or look at players like Asia Wilson, for example. Asia
Mm-hmm.
Wilson is a great player. Um, you know, and I get that it perhaps it's unfair that she doesn't get the same hype that Caitlyn does, but we can't control who gets the hype or doesn't get the hype, you know?
Give us a
Uh,
reason to care about you.
yeah, you know, like market yourself. I mean, Angel Reese is, I would argue there's just as many people rooting for her in
Mm-hmm.
this whole situation as Caitlin Clark. Um, and let's not act like that. Some people try to argue that like Caitlin Clark only is as popular as she is because she's a white girl, and I will counter that with, well, how is Serena Venus Williams? How are they so popular?
They're just able to market themselves properly.
Exactly. You know, and I think Caitlin Clark, because people tune in to watch her, what happens is they're going to watch all these other players, and especially all these young women who are trying to watch Caitlin Clark play. They're going to be like, "Oh, I want to play like Asia Wilson. I want to play like um, Kelsey Mitchell. I want to play like Sabrina Ionescu. I want to play like Paige Beckers." You know, and by making the league so hostile to your main player, you're going to ruin that if
You're
you're
going
the
to run her out of the
WNBA.
league.
Yeah, like what's stopping Caitlin Clark right now from running to Brazil and playing in their
Yeah,
league?
yeah. Brazil has a pro women's league. American players, played here. There was even a lady Vol that played here a couple of years ago. I think it was. I heard, forgot her name. It was something Keshkirwa. But yeah, I think she should look elsewhere, Brazil, Europe, to take a 1 year break and show that she's not. Because the other players from the WNBA that are hostile to Caitlin Clark think that, oh, she's trapped here, so we're gonna bully her to maybe give up or something. But she has other options.
So the issue with her leaving the WNBA is by doing that, she's letting the people that are hostile against her win. So there's no good answer for this. Either you stick with the WNBA and continue to get beat up and harassed and stuff like that, or you leave for somewhere where you won't struggle with people constantly trying to get you, but the people that don't like you did their job.
Well, this all goes back to Kathy Engelbert. Like she's the commissioner of the league. She's got to step in
Yeah.
and figure out a solution to this, And honestly, I don't know if she's capable of figuring out a solution to this. Because I mean, the other issue. Let's look at like how much of a laughingstock right now the league is. They're literally having to convene a meeting to define what their eligibility rules over what counts at, like how are you in such a situation where you have like Polymarket writing a headline saying the WNBA is going to convene a meeting in order to define what a woman is. Like it is when you have headlines like that dominating your league. I mean, how are you supposed to build a long-term fan base?
And be taken seriously.
Like,
Yeah, and how about Clay Travis offering $10 million for I think it was the Las Vegas Ace to be I believe it was a high school team, high school boys team.
yeah, that was like I think the a high school states champion of his choice.
Hmm. It's
Which
rough to see.
I think it was like Lonzo Balls and I forget who was he had with him. It was another NBA player, and they were like, "Yeah, I think in the eighth grade, I would have been able to beat any WNBA player 1-on-1 by eighth, ninth grade." Which
It's yeah.
I mean, I, as uncomfortable as it is to say, I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
Think about the high school highlights you've seen of like LeBron James or Zion Williamson. Like, think about those guys.
And you
I
have to
mean,
remember those guys were also like lightning in a bottle. But the point's still there. It's that there are a decent amount of players that can beat a lot of the WNBA players.
yeah, I mean, it's biology, and there's no disrespect to
Yeah.
any of the female players. That's why they have a different league because it'd be
Yeah.
unfair to the women if they were just all in one pool.
Yeah.
It's biology, and it sucks. That's controversial to say, um, but it is. And that's no disrespect to anyone who decides to undergo a gender transition. You know, like that's a highly private decision, for various reasons. Someone may choose to do that. Um, but you know, that's why this whole thing is just, it's unfortunate that it has gotten to the point that it's gotten to, because it takes away the focus from the WNBA growing its brand in a way that it
Mhm.
should be. Because this should be the opportunity for the league to gain the most viewers that it ever has. And I forget who said it, but the WNBA should really be growing, especially amongst dads and their daughters. You
Mhm.
know, because for young women, right, you're the top two team sports you can play are either soccer, which of course we know with the U.S. women's team and the rise of the NWSL. You know, plenty of there are more opportunities than ever for top tier soccer players to make a living and to gain notoriety. But also, you know, women's basketball is another way, and we all, and like, look, I think here in Tennessee, we all a lot of us respect women's basketball. Like we think about Pat Summitt and how much of an impact she had on Knoxville, on the state of Tennessee. And you know, that's why we want to make sure that women's basketball is safe. Like, is a space where where great players like a Caitlin Clark, like a
Mhm.
Brianna Stewart, like a Sabrina Ionesco, Skylar Diggins. Um, I mean, like, there have been some of the best college basketball games of the past 5 to 6 years have been on the women's side.
Yeah.
Like the two runs that Caitlin had with Iowa, I mean, those were so much fun to watch. That Iowa Connecticut game, her last year, the Final Four, that and then the year before when Iowa played South Carolina, those are two of the best college basketball games I've ever watched,
Yeah.
men's or women's. Um, and of course, back in the day, you know, watching Candace Parker with like you know Pat Summitt, like that was my jam back in the day, man. Like it just sucks that it feels like you can't talk about women's basketball without having to drag in all this political
Yeah.
baggage.
I just want to talk about the sport and have a good time, but there's so much other stuff going on
It,
that it's
it's like
frustrating.
it's like you have to declare your politics at the door to watch the WNBA.
Yeah.
And as long as the league feels like that, then it's never going to grow as much as it possibly can. And it's not never going to become like the top sport in the country. It's never going to become the. I don't think it will ever eclipse the NBA, but it should be able to be sustainable in its own right. And they're gonna have to find a solution, like encourage the robberies. Like it's okay if the other
Yeah.
players hate Caitlin Clark, but you know it's okay if they hate Indiana. But like, go out there and play clean basketball.
Yeah.
Go out there and score 50 against her.
Beat her on the court, not with your fists.
Exactly. And you know, don't like try to make this a race thing when it isn't. You
And
know, and to be fair, I don't think most players in the league feel like that. But clearly there's a handful like Carrington who do. They just
it
do. And that should be called out and that needs to be addressed and that needs to be dealt with. And if something like that keeps happening, maybe you should kick that player out of the league.
it
You know, and
it's
she already was tweeting about like, oh, she already like tweeted August 23rd, which is the next time that Indiana and Chicago play.
that's borderline a threat, which
Yeah, like what exactly is she gonna do in that game?
if I would league officials should keep an eye on her, and if she does anything, um suspend her. And that's the frustrating thing about it all is a lot of this controversy of players getting a little too aggressive. It's bringing views to the league, but not in a good way.
No, like
Like
I'll say
when
this: I've never seen so many people talk about the WNBA before on social
yeah,
media, but almost none of it had to do with any on-court play.
it's
It was a good game yesterday
oh
too, and
yeah,
like, and what's crazy, you know, also lost in all this too, the ridiculous foul against Caitlin Clark that
which
was
we haven't
gonna have
even
her
gotten
suspended.
to until now.
Like she just bumps into the ref, and then
Yeah,
she gets like kicked out for the next game, and then like they rescinded the foul 2 hours later
rightfully so.
because they know how stupid it was. But the fact that you're from a PR standpoint, your Saturday was already. I feel so bad for whoever is the public relations coordinator for the WNBA. Imagine what their Saturday was like yesterday. So you wake up, and then the trending headline is this meeting that's being convened to define what a woman is, and then the second thing that happens is the Carrington incident. That she goes in and tweets what she tweets, and then your third incident is Clark running into the ref and getting a technical
Not
foul
even
for it.
running into, lightly bumping into. Like it's straight up physics.
God.
When you're in motion, you can't immediately stop. When you
Like,
pump the brakes on a car, unless your brakes are like the best ever, you don't immediately come to a stop. You got to sort of decelerate. And that didn't happen because, well, physics. And Caitlin
like
Clark hit that official about as hard as a napkin could hit someone, and it turned into all of this.
Yeah, like Gus, I can't think of a more catastrophic PR day for any organization than the WNBA yesterday. Like, it's just every aspect of yesterday was disaster, unless you take the view of, oh, this is making people talk about the league.
It's not a good thing for him to talk about the league that way, though. At
Yeah,
least, like,
yeah, I agree with you, Dylan. Like as a PR marketing from any league, you don't want your league to be seen as hostile to players. Like you want your players to be hostile within each other, so people be interested in the rivalries. Not like I don't like the league because they don't know what they're doing. You're antagonizing. The stars tend to be kind of like uh, draw viewership down, market like jersey sales down. Because as a league, you want to promote your product, not your product to be um, uh, into like that's why as leagues you want to be more into the sport, not the politics.
Like, Gus, has anything like this ever even happened in Brazil? Like, where a sport was just so overwhelmed by the politics, like the sport was secondary to it?
I think, unfortunately, that's what happening in women's soccer here as well. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of debate within, this terms of like, oh, the women's league don't get enough attention. The fields are not the best. The practicing fields are not the best. And now we have debate that next year, interesting debate. I think I mentioned in the show, or at least to you, Nick, that during the Women's World Cup that's going to be happening in Brazil, the men's league in the first and second division might have to stop. And I'm against it because there's no correlation whatsoever. Like the soccer calendar in Brazil is as thin as it is. You don't have room for it, and you're just gonna antagonize the Brazilian soccer fans instead of enjoying the Women's World Cup. They'll be like, "Oh, damn it!"
like,
Well, I mean, even like doing this discussion, right? I know there would be some people, if they were watching this discussion, they'd be like, "All right, you're free men. You have no place in talking about a women's sport." Which my counterpart is, but at the same time, you'd be demanding us. You'd be asking
yeah,
us, why aren't we watching and supporting said women's sport,
yeah.
but like not talking about it? And it's a double standard.
And like
And,
going back a few months ago with the whole USA Hockey controversy, it was so the women's game against Canada was the most watched game of all of women's hockey. And they won gold. It was awesome. The men's game was watched had more viewers than the women, which, like, I hate to say that's just the way it is, but that is the NHL's best against the NHL's best. And not only that, it is the best that USA has against the best Canada has, the two biggest superpowers in the sport of hockey. And sure, USA won gold, and it was great up until people turned it political. And we talked about it when it happened. I was so frustrated, and you could sort of see that frustration coming out right now.
Well, to
I'm
be fair,
trying
that
to
was
keep
kind
it
of
going.
President Trump's fault. To be fair,
It was. But the point is, they were focusing more on outside political crap rather than the sport itself. And there's still people that still cling on to that 6 months on, and everyone in the hockey community tells them to just shut up, because when sports get political, it happens, I get it. But when it turns into such a dumb topic, like identifying your politics before you can even make an opinion, that's not what it's about. It's a bunch of people playing a game.
right? Well, I mean, it's a broader problem with society. It's like,
Mhm.
where like on any given issue, like people ask, well, if you're not affected by it, you shouldn't have an opinion on it.
Ah,
But like we all vote, right, for our local representatives, for president, for whatever, right? And they're going to make decisions on all kinds of things. And even if I may never have to deal with X topic, like as a voter, like you have the right to have an opinion on anything.
yeah,
And same thing as a viewer, like because I'm voting whether or not I want to watch your product. Like I'm watching NASCAR right now, so I'm voting that I like racing, and it's just therefore any changes within the sport, like I'm gonna have an opinion on.
yeah.
Even though I've never driven a race car, you know, but I still think I have the right to have an opinion on whatever the racing body of NASCAR or IndyCar or whatever, like likes to do. So this idea that because we're not women that we can't have an opinion on the WNBA, which is something I've seen. Um,
The way I see it, we're journalists first, men second when it comes to stuff like this.
Right, and we're all sports fans,
Yeah,
and like if any of us ever have a daughter, right? Like I want them to have
yeah,
opportunities if they end up being good at basketball. I want them to have a WNBA to go to. Um, and I don't want the league to self-destruct itself because of the pressures of society right now when it comes to talking about all these various issues, and you have all these different interest groups that are trying to score political points, and it doesn't help that it's a midterm year, so
yeah.
everyone's really trying to score political points right now. um, and honestly, it's going to be very interesting to see because the WNBA playoffs are going to be in about a month and a half from now, especially if the Indiana Fever make a deep run, and even if the Indiana makes the championship series somehow, what that will do to the discourse of the league. Because certainly they've never had this many eyes on their product before. But they've got to be really smart and really careful about it. Because it feels like so many different groups are watching, rooting for different things to happen. And honestly, I think they may need a new commissioner to kind of deal with this. Because you need someone who is going to make decisions from a pragmatic business standpoint and not from a political standpoint.
It's when you're choosing which sports teams you support just based on politics, then you're not watching sports for the right reason. I am wearing an Ovechkin jersey right now, and he is a massive Vladimir Putin supporter. That's something I disagree with, but I like him as an athlete, so I'm sticking with it.
Right. Right. And it's like people that claim, oh, the Capitals fans all support the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like, no, like that's not that's not at all what it is. I mean, it's just it's exhausting sometimes what sports discourse has turned into in America.
I just blame the toxic internet because
Yeah.
I'm sure years ago when like trying to think of some big
Like,
sports actions that
think
were. Go ahead.
think about it, guys. Like, for example, if you're
Yeah, I
really,
mean,
really
it's just there's always been moves. There's always going to be politics in sports, as you said. But I guess my final thought on this um, is just I just hope that the officials come down on Carrington here to set an example, saying that like we're not going to tolerate fouls like that in the league. Um, Settle your beefs on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Settle them on the court, and for the love of God, get some disciplined messaging on the court. Like we, like this. It's just it's nuts. You got owners yelling at like teenagers for showing up with like XXXY shirts and stuff, and it's just like I mean, it's not good for your product to be seen as openly hostile to certain political segments of the population.
The fact that it's only the WNBA too is crazy to me.
Right,
Like the
right.
same argument for all of this can be made about every women's sport, but like I correct me if I'm wrong. The WNBA is the most watched professional women's sport, right?
I would say, yeah,
Okay,
outside of like
yeah,
the Women's World Cup.
yeah. But that women's World Cup is only every 4 years. But like,
Right. And I guess
y-
when the Williams sisters were on their top, they were well watched. And I don't think Coco Goff necessarily has gained that same. Although I have sat down to watch a couple of Goff
yeah.
matches at like
But,
Wimbledon.
but like the WNBA is on TV. Um,
And
National
I think about
Women's
like
Soccer
obviously
League.
gymnasts and stuff at the Olympics
Yeah.
every 4 years.
National Women's Soccer League is on TV. PWHL you can watch on YouTube. But the only women's sports league where this is an issue at all is the WNBA,
Right. It's because
as far as I know.
right, and it's just a variety of issues and a variety of different agendas going into people trying to make points into the league that have nothing to do with basketball. So
I just,
it's just a crazy, crazy. It's a crazy time we're living in, you know. But hey, this show is a free speech zone.
yeah.
We're gonna say what we're gonna say. Um, I guess final question is: does Ennis Cantor and Royce White ever take a step on a WNBA court?
If they do, something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah,
And
because I mean, I clearly think it's a clear publicity stunt.
yes.
What they're doing. I don't think they will ever actually step foot on a court, but just the fact that the league has found itself in this position is a testament to how messy the whole thing has gotten.
It's sad to see.
Yeah. Wow, it's 2.5 hours into this podcast. I don't know how much time you have left, Gus. Because I do want to just briefly bring up MLB.
now we can
No,
go ahead. We can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, I know you had a little bit of a rant you want to go on with the Orioles.
Okay, so I'll keep it short because I can already tell that this has been dragging on. A few days ago, they traded Adley Rutschman, who is one of the best players, to a division rival, the Boston Red Sox, which, like, it just feels like the Orioles don't want to win. And all of the big market teams like New York, Boston, the Dodgers, they're just getting everyone's best players to constantly have success. And it feels like all the smaller market teams are there just feed them players. And I understand it's a money thing. I know that the Orioles don't have as much money as the Yankees or the Dodgers or whoever. But when you trade away your good players, I also heard a rumor that Gunnar Henderson wants to leave. I don't know how valid or true that statement is, but the Orioles rumor mill is going to go because we're never sure how long a player is going to stay with us. But anyways, it's frustrating because it just feels like management doesn't want to win. And when you don't want to win, people aren't going to come to the games. So what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing could be said about the Detroit Tigers trading away Tariq Stubble. And they traded him away for like peanuts, basically. I mean, some prospects.
I don't even know who the Orioles got in exchange for Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, it's just the 2027 negotiations are going to be an absolute disaster because the players are not going to want a salary cap. But I think it is clear as day to me, and I've had some debates about this. I know Jason, for example, he's against the salary cap because in his mind, it's like, well, teams are responsible for how they manage their finances. I mean, we've talked at length about the Mets on this show, about how they have the most expensive roster, and they just cannot, and they're terrible. So just because you spend a lot of money does not mean you're going to be good.
Yeah.
But there is a correlation, you know? And there's some teams that do really well. Like, I mean, I think like the Braves, for example, are a great example of a team. You know, we're in the top half of spending, but we're not spending Dodgers level of money. But we've drafted really well, been really smart with roster management. So that's why our team typically was pretty good. And of course, including this year, although we lost the series this weekend at New York, but it is what it is. Losing at Yankee Stadium. But yeah, for teams like the Orioles, the Tigers, I mean, the A's, it's just, yeah, it's tough. And because from the MLB perspective, you don't want to see a handful of teams constantly be the dynasty, you know? Because baseball, right, it's a game that really relies on local markets. It's not like the NFL where no matter who's in it, people are going to watch. Like, people are more likely to watch baseball if their team is directly involved because just the level of people who are just baseball fanatics is way lower than football. And plus, in football, you just have a lot less games that are occurring per year. So every game matters way more. In baseball, you got 162 games per year.
If I try to go to at least, I haven't been to one in years, but I try to go to a Ravens game as often as I can. The NFL is kind of expensive to go to. If I miss a year, that's fine. But an Orioles game, I can go super easy. And you'd think that small market teams where you can go to however many games you want for relatively cheap and have a good time, it's doable, but give me a reason to. And if the Orioles, I have a very toxic relationship with them because despite what I'm about to say, I will still go to a few games a year. If the Orioles don't give me a reason to want to go to a game, then I won't. You know? And going back to the salary cap stuff, if this is going to be a massively hot take, if there does end up being a lockout and we go without baseball for a year, I'm fine with that because the league just needs to get it together and figure it out. And if it takes no baseball for a year, so be it.
I mean, I think it'd be a disaster because the MLB has a lot of positive momentum. I think at this point they've eclipsed the NBA. I think they're the second biggest league in the country. Obviously, it's a very distant second to the NFL because nothing's touching the NFL in America. But they are, but they are winning the battle of all every other league. And Gus, I just want to get your thoughts on this real quick about, how this whole situation with some of the trades we've seen is going to affect the MLB discussions next year.
Oh yeah. Can you hear? First of all, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah,
I don't think we can hear that. But in any case,
Dylan can hear me. Dylan can hear me.
It's certainly going to be a story that we'll talk about much more in the future as we get closer. Are you waving at us, Gus?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me? I
Yeah.
have my mic on. Yeah, I think Dylan can hear me. I think it's so. No, I just want to say, Nick. I feel like.
Okay. So just kind of rewrapping here. So talk about the MLB. I know you.
No, can you hear me? Hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I don't think he can.
I think Dylan can.
I can't hear you at all.
And the echo's back.
How about now? Yeah. 1 second. I am arriving at the radio station.
All right. But yeah, baseball's broken.
Baseball is very, very broken. Really quick, Dylan, I know that you wanted to talk some AHL real quick.
Yeah, we're getting. I know training camp has started for them. I brought up that it was the anniversary of Gretzky getting traded to the Kings. And let me try to pull up my notes again. I remember now. So a few days ago, Jason and I were talking about what it takes for a number to be retired, which like you have to be a legendary player for that franchise. That makes sense. And I think it was like 2 days ago, the LA Kings announced that Anze Kopitar's number will be retired, I think in February. They're doing it. And it's sort of frustrating because there are a ton of players for a ton of teams whose numbers haven't been retired, even though they deserve to be. Let me pull up the ones that Jason said. But like, for example, I'm a Caps fan. Peter Bonner has been retired for, I think he retired before I was even born. But he is the most legendary Capital since, or in the pre-Ovechkin era. Olaf Kolzig is the greatest goalie besides Braden Holtby to play for Washington. His number hasn't been retired yet. The last number we retired was, I think, Mike Gartner, who played in the 80s, and that was done in 2008. So it's been almost 20 years since Washington has done any jersey retirements. Where is the names Jason gave me? I can't remember any of them. Marian Hossa is one that Chicago hasn't done yet.
That's surprising because he was obviously a huge part of their cup runs.
It needs to be done. And the argument my dad presented was for guys like Bondra and Kolzig, they never gave Washington a cup, which I understand, but neither have any of the 4 names already hanging from the ceiling at Capital One Arena. I fully guarantee you once Ovechkin retires, his name's going up. With that, you got to put Backstrom's name up. For Chicago, I think Taves and Kane are going to go up together. I don't really know who Nashville has retired. Do you, Nick?
I don't know if we've really retired anyone. I mean, Rene, I think, should be retired. I don't know if he has.
You're such a young franchise that it's
like
you got to build up the reputation a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I think Forsberg has an argument.
Probably, I'd retire Forsberg's number when it's time.
Yeah, but those are the only 2 I can really think of on top of my head that deserve. Shane Weber should be retired. Shane Weber should be retired.
I hear Gus.
Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes, I can hear you.
There we go.
Finally. So I'm here at the radio station here. So, but I think a number to retire. I think at least 2 titles, and like in baseball, we can argue about having a milestone, like like a legendary, like a really big number of, let's say, home runs, or your leading stats on something for 5 to 10 years. But yeah, there has to be an accomplishment like really big.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now that we can hear you, just to circle back around real quick, I was asking about how do you think the Skubal trade to the Dodgers and the Roachman trade to the Red Sox, how do you think that's going to affect the negotiations next year in baseball?
Yeah, I think baseball has a dilemma because players definitely want this momentum of salaries to continue because it's more money on their pockets, but owners definitely want to find sustainable ways to continue because they're going to be like, hey, our fans revenue shrink a lot from 10 years ago, let's say. So, you know, I cannot even imagine how the CBA negotiations are going to be next year.
Yeah, and they
I
need to
feel
figure out the television stuff too. They got to figure out how to make it more easier to watch.
just do like the NFL does. I think the MLB should scrap RSNs and just go to streaming services and sports channels and
Well,
just broadcast in every way. ESPN, Fox Sports, NBCSN, you name it.
an
Like
issue
have
I
your
think
product like that, not in the shadows.
I think an issue the MLB has is to get MLB. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. In order to even buy MLB TV, you have to have ESPN Unlimited, which,
Correct.
okay, yeah, that's not fair because ESPN, I know they just signed a massive deal with YouTube TV, where if you connect your Disney account to your YouTube TV account or whatever, you get ESPN Unlimited, which saves you money because you don't have to pay for ESPN Unlimited. But on top of that, if you want MLB TV, you gotta buy ESPN Unlimited, which is much
Which is like
is
39 a
MLB
month, but I don't
TV?
know what the MLB on top of that. And then
It
if you want to watch
is
your team,
holy crap! It's $30 a month or 150 a season, and then you have to deal with blackouts and stuff. I
like I
know
would never be able to watch an Atlanta game from Chattanooga on
Like,
MLB
I think
TV.
there's still blackouts. Why?
it's at basically every Orioles game is on Masson, which for whatever reason, as much as they piss us off, we pay for. Um, and then I know, even though the Nationals are my secondary team, they're sort of in broadcast purgatory because the Nationals didn't renew their deal with Masson, so I don't even know how to watch Washington anymore. It's there's so much beyond playing baseball and salary cap and stuff. There's just so much wrong with baseball.
I mean, the Braves have their own streaming service, but like I'm not paying $100 a year for that because I know
I
any game of consequence is probably going to be on national TV. So
probably and
I'll just keep up with highlights and I know the playoff games aren't going to be on Braves Division. So
if it came with more than the Braves, would you consider it? Because like I know the Capitals are their main streaming source is Monumental Sports, which also covers. All right, so we got the Capitals, we got the Wizards, we got the Mystics.
I mean the only other team that would matter is like the Hawks and the Dream, and like I'm not.
Yeah, you don't care
I
about
don't.
them.
I don't care about any other Atlanta team, but uh, but the Braves.
It's baseball's broken.
Yeah, it is what it is there. Um, Real quick to wrap up the American section. I don't know if you have any Brazilian stuff you want to talk about, guys. Um, the U.S. Under 20 team is playing their final tonight in the CONCACAF like Under 20 tournament versus Mexico in the Under 20. So a very interesting game. We'll be curious to see if any of these players on the U.S. team will eventually go to the main squad. So it'll be a game down in the Estadio Azteca. Obviously, nothing like the World Cup, but because there's some young American national players getting some taste of international competition. And NASCAR currently at Iowa. Ryan Blaney leading for about 82 laps of that race so far. IndyCar today is at Portland.
That just started.
Yeah, okay. I need to put that on. Oh yeah,
Uh,
I know you want to talk about you're going to the IndyCar race in DC.
oh yeah, it's I haven't been to a car race in 20 years. I think the last one I went to was the Dover race. I know that's NASCAR. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Doing my best to sort of figure things out, but I just know they're driving around the National Mall, going past all the museums. They're going in front of the Capitol, which is actually where my seats are. So that's going to be a real cool place to be. The closer we get to it, I'll be able to talk to you guys about it more because I'm definitely doing my research. And then afterwards we'll talk about it. But it's exciting, and yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah, so I've never been to a road course race. But obviously going to the Indianapolis 500, that was a really incredible experience. Of course, obviously they're at a road course today in Portland, while of course NASCAR is on kind of a short track ish over in Iowa. So two very different styles of racing, and I want to see if I can flip my camera here because I'm watching them both side by side on YouTube TV. So this
And
is
then
why.
I'll send you guys how the track for the DC
Probably,
race
probably
looks.
best because if Facebook has been so weird about what can be on or not, so it's just weird. If you
Yeah.
like here at the radio station, we show highlights from a soccer game that we broadcast, and Facebook, it took down our Facebook Live radio show.
That's insane.
And
Shout out, Mark.
was our own highlights from our own, media group. But in any case, just wrap up real quick Brazilian sports. So, we had the Brazilian Cup this midweek. Corinthians eliminated against Internacional, and there's been a lot of, the negotiations between Corinthians and Memphis Depay, the former Man United and Barcelona player, has kind of, not developed. And it seems like Corinthians front office and president not very much interesting to sign, but fans definitely want him back. Santos advanced, also Palmeiras advanced as well to the quarterfinals, and so today we have Brazilian League. There's some games going on right now. So Palmeiras 0-0 against Internacional. Corinthians and Santos playing later today. And yesterday, São Paulo lost again, getting closer and closer to the relegation zone. And, it's going to be an interesting relegation battle because we have Santos, São Paulo, Vasco, Inter, Grêmio. So a lot of big brands are going to be fighting not to be relegated. So, and for the title race, Palmeiras and Flamengo again. So that's the scenario here at the Brazilian soccer.
Absolutely, and definitely all the soccer leagues around the world getting back into session here as we get back into full club soccer. But guys, almost a 3-hour podcast. What a show here. We didn't even finish our preview of the SEC, so we'll have to come back and finish that next time.
It just means more.
It just means more indeed. Talk more NFL. And just, yeah, all things sports and sports adjacent topics. But that's Dylan Becker, Gus Hamazelli. I'm Nick Hill. Thank you so much for spending a part of your Sunday afternoon with us here on Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports.